Let's get ready to RPG!
RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG! RPG!
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the late night show here at Night's the Last Call. My name is Derek Melinda, and we are here finally. Of course, we did not stream at our usual Tuesday time. I had a lot of stuff going on. I was helping my mom out with some stuff. Ended up getting dinner with her. You know, that stuff's important. It's always important, but of course, extra important, especially lately. So, unfortunately, our normal stream had to be delayed. However, I did tell my patrons there's a non-zero chance that I might hop on later in the evening and hang out with y'all for, an hour or two. An hour or two. Of course, I have very strange sleep habits because I'm a child of the internet and YouTube now. So here we are. It's 12:30 in the morning my time. Maybe it's late at the evening for you in the West Coast. Maybe it's early in the morning for you over in Europe. Or maybe it's the middle of the day for you folks over in New Zealand. Welcome. No real agenda today. Just hanging out. I wanted to get on to at least, we could do some Q&A if you guys want to throw some questions my way. Happy to talk about stuff. I will say that the stream title was an indicator, or the thumbnail. Today was a pretty cool milestone. So we started the Knights of Last Call Patreon in 2021. So we started the channel in 2020 during COVID, like so many people. And after we had been doing it for about a year, we knew that we had a lot of regulars who were really interested in seeing us, talk about other stuff. And at the time, we were a Pathfinder 2 channel. And not because I was a Pathfinder 2 person. Obviously, a lot of these books on my shelf are over 30 years old. So I've always been a lot of RPGs. But the channel was Pathfinder 2 focused. And I talked a lot about how I played and talked about a lot of other RPGs. But at the time, I didn't really feel like it was the right time to start talking about those channels. So, or about those topics. So we started the Patreon because there was a lot of people who wanted to talk about RPGs more than what we could do because we weren't doing live streams at the time. And there were a lot of people who wanted to talk to me, not like because I'm not that I'm ever going to be internet famous, but, back then I was even less internet famous. And there was no opportunity because we used to just do our videos, right? We would do our videos and post about either, our actual play of us playing Rise of the Runelords, or we would do our combat and tactics videos. And there were a lot of people who wanted to have these conversations. And at the time, we didn't go live. So I started the Patreon as just a way to talk to people and engage with them. And then, hey, if you like the channel, maybe you could throw some support. And that first year, 2021, I think we ended up getting probably around like 50 or 60 or something like that, 75 maybe. 75 patrons, which was huge. And of course, at the end of 2021, New Year's Eve, we did our very first live stream. It was a New Year's Eve special, me and Tim. And that kind of kicked off the whole streaming thing. And that really changed the direction of the channel, to say the least. Any case, the Patreon continued to grow. And we used to joke that it was just this small niche little community. And as I started kind of sharing my love, and predominantly Pathfinder 2, but even from the very beginning, the Patreon had huge sections dedicated to other games. Games that I loved, that Smith loved, and that we loved sharing with the group. And as time has gone on, we have become more and more and more of this sort of RPG community, rather than a Discord dedicated to a single AP on the internet. So we've been sort of dancing around numbers up and down for a long time. The gradual trend has been up, but there have been extended periods of time when the total number of people that have joined the Discord has been down. And we kind of skirted and danced around this idea of like, would it be cool if we could ever get to 500. And of course, back in the day, we thought about we're like, oh, we'll shut the Patreon down at 150. Like, what would we ever be able to? How would we even talk to anybody? Well, today was a big milestone for me personally, which was we had a couple people join, and the last person who joined, shout out to a lot of the people who joined today. Shout out to Phobos. I think they're in chat. Phobos. I think they were number 499. But P. Titus or P. Titus, depending on which pronunciation you go by. But I'll go with P. Titus because that's the way I pronounce it. P. Titus joined, and that was our 500th, the first time we've ever been at 500 active patrons. Obviously, we've had, in the course of our almost four years of doing this, we've had probably close to 1,500 patrons come, and some people come and they stay for a month or two and they leave. They decide it's not for them. Some people come and they stay for years, and situations change. Their interests change. Their family situation changes. Their financial situation changes, and they end up leaving, which we love. That they were able to come and get. I mean, anybody who gives any amount of support and joins us even for the shortest amount of time is already in the top tier of people who have ever supported this channel. So it's a huge honor, honestly, to even get one person's patronage for 1 month. But today we hit 500 active patrons, and that is a huge accomplishment, flat. But for a channel my size, which is to say we're not even at 15,000 subs, to have that many active patrons is nuts. It's crazy. And it really, and it's less of a reflection of anything I'm doing, because God knows I suck. It's really a reflection of the fact that all I'm doing is getting people in the door, and then they come in, they meet, and they engage with incredible community that the patrons have built. And some people do bounce off of it. It's fair. But a lot of people meet people, they engage with people, and they decide, this is the community on the internet that I want to be a part of, and they stay. And so retention is up, new patrons is up, and so we've kind of been trickling up. We had a lot of surge with Northern Reaches Season 3, of course. Shout out to my PF2 players. A lot of PF2 content going to be coming in August, because we're going to have Battlecry, Starfinder 2. I count that as Pathfinder 2 content. But we also had a lot of interest surge with Daggerheart, and as a result, we hit 500. And so that is an absolutely stunning, accomplishment that I quite frankly never thought would even be possible. So to be as small of a community as to get anybody to get 500 patrons is crazy, especially since and I say this somewhat tongue in cheek. You don't get anything for joining my. Some people join a Patreon because they, Bob's a great example. I love Bob. Bob joins a Patreon because they produce, they release STL files every month of new terrain, or maybe you're a member of Shepeku because they release battle mats every month, right? So you're kind of buying something for your money. This is, aside from maybe you get a T-shirt, some stickers, some fun merch or whatever like that, stuff that we give away to our patrons, or that you can buy with our funny money tickets. We're not selling anything on our Patreon. So this is literally just people who want to be, supporting the channel and or being a part of the community, and or both. Maybe they're here for something specific that the community offers, like Northern Reaches, which is great. And yeah, I think that's it's incredible. It's awesome. And it's crazy. So 500, and it's a big accomplishment for me. It was certainly to say it was a pipe dream a couple of years ago. It's beyond anything I could possibly tell you. And of course, it came at a great time, because I lost my job a couple months ago. So and my company was nice enough to give me almost 2 months of severance. So come July, come June, really, I didn't really have any new paychecks money coming in. So the only money I've been living off of the last couple of months the last couple of months has been from the patron. And that's awesome. So, I mean, we're not like, kicking it. We're not throwing, we're not at that point yet in the campaign when the GM tells you the price of the room and the meal at the inn, and you just say, I give them a platinum coin and I tell them to keep the change. You all know what part I'm talking about. It's that part in the campaign where you just don't care about money anymore, and you just pimp out and big up everybody, and you're just like, I give them a platinum, keep the change, I don't care. We're not at that point. Let's be clear. I'm still like, I gave you a silver. Can I get that 3 copper back, please? But I am able to pay for the room. Right? That's the key. I'm able to pay for the room. I just need that change. The level 2 janitor says, I hate that part of the game. It's an inflection point, level 2. It happens. I think it happens in every game. I will say, level 2 janitor, that for the most part, I have been impressed. Now, granted, we didn't play it for an entire year, but I have been very impressed with Torchbearer's ability to keep money relevant, even as the group manages to get a lot of gold, because you get the gold. It's like you get it quick and you spend it quick, and they nickel and dime you, and the towns aren't really fans of adventurers, so they kind of price gouge you, and you're never in a situation where we've been playing now for close to 9 sessions, and just recently one of the groups was talking about how when they went to town, laden with treasure, the group's ranger still went and hunted for their rations because the group didn't want. The group was like, it's just too much money to spend on rations. Like, let me go hunt for rations. So that we could save some money. And because everything is very pricey and things, spiral out of control quickly. And before you know it, you're just out of money. And town's expensive, and getting things done in town is expensive. You never feel like you have enough money. And before you know it, it's gone. So it's kind of another thing, which is a side tangent on Torchbearer, but Torchbearer doesn't really let you, or if you do, it really gouges you. It treats coins as being very fungible. If you have, 7, we'll call them, they call them dice, but let's say you have 7 dice of coin, then that's fungible. You can break that up. You can say, okay, I'm going to give 3 dice of coin to you, 2 dice of coin to you, 2 dice of coin to you. But if you have, say, a piece of art or a jade statue that's worth 8 dice of treasure, unless you sell that and try to get coin, in which case you might only get 4 dice worth of coin for that. You don't get to break that up. You have to you have to use that entire statue in a single transaction. So it's like one of those situations. It's like kind of almost like a barter economy. Like, they're not going to give you change for a giant jade statue. If the only thing that you have to pay for your stay at the tavern or you're at the inn is a jade statue, the innkeeper might take the jade statue, and that's it. You don't get change for that, because it's not like it's literally equatable to money. Anyway, so I think it's really an interesting part of the game. That's true. You guys have a fantastic cook, which really helps in Torchbearer for sure. What's up, Patricio? The whole economy of traits and checks to get recover is a bit clunky in my opinion. How is your group handling it? Well, they love it. They think that it creates a really interesting challenge to the play of game, not just to the game element, but also the it's a interesting reason to sort of think about your traits from a negative perspective and to apply them against yourself in a penalty situation. I've actually been running 2 groups, Patricio, 2 groups of patrons. They're in the same dungeon, in the same world, but they're opposed. They're actually rival adventuring groups, and they play on alternate weekends in real life. And they have not They have not fought each other yet. So, Roman, 8 statue for a year's worth of room and board. Would that work? It would not. Your time in town is sort of abstract. You're only there for you're there for what's called a town phase. But once you leave the town phase, that's it. You're done. So, and even then, I doubt that. The other thing that's interesting about Torchbearer is that there is this idea that people don't like adventurers. You're scum. You're drifters. You're not. You're a scoundrel. Not that it's like trying to be I'm not trying to be like mean or anything like that, but like they're viewed in a very it's not even racist, but a very classist way, where it's kind of like, we don't like those type of people around. Those are no good people, not in my backyard type of situation. But they're not seen as good, because it's like a good person goes and, they get a job and they do something. They're productive. They help people out. Adventurers are, kind of irresponsible, scoundrelly, vagabonds. And so they're not really particularly liked. And so it kind of more of that old school sensibility, where to be an adventurer is not to be a hero. So. Will you try to continue the amendment with reviewing Cosmere? Markeith, probably, I say no with a couple of caveats. Number one, I understand that the backers will be getting early access to their PDFs tomorrow, or I should say today. I did not back Cosmere. I backed a lot of games. I backed The Broken Empires. I backed Mythic Bastionland. I backed DC-20. I backed Draw Steel. I backed a bunch of stuff. I did not back the Cosmere RPG. No, there wasn't enough there that felt different enough for me to really back it. But the main reason is because, number two, I have bounced off the Cosmere verse. Is that the term? Hard. I have tried to read Mistborn and The Way of Kings or whatever, 1.5 times each. And I just don't like the world, and I don't like Brandon Sanderson as an author. I thought he did a great job with Wheel of Time and ending the stories. But I don't know if that's because he was working off of notes given to him by Harriet, that's Robert Jordan's widow, or if because he felt like he had to maintain a different, he couldn't write in his voice because he wasn't just doing his own thing. He was picking up the work of somebody else. I liked his writing in those last Wheel of Time books. Not a big fan of Mistborn or the other one. So not only am I not a big fan of it, I don't know anything about it. So I would definitely be like a clueless person reviewing these games. I'd be looking at a mechanic, and other people would be like, "Oh my God, that's so amazing." And I'd be like, I don't understand this at all. This means nothing to me because I didn't read the books. And so a lot of that stuff doesn't make anything sense to me. So, well, that being said, there's, it's a new RPG. And once it's available on DriveThruRPG, I'm sure I will probably be voted by my patrons to take a look at it. And so we probably will here. You haven't been around. Did Dragon Tide ever happen? Jay, definitely still a work in progress. The long and the short of it, Jay, is like fourfold. One is, we started talking about it as sort of a joke last year, really. But Bob got really hyped about Dragonbane and really was trying to keep on it. But my focus was on making sure that Northern Reaches, our Pathfinder 2 game that we actually officially support, got launched. So we launched Northern Reaches Season 3. But then I had a lot of crazy stuff happen to me in my life. I lost my dad, lost my job, just a bunch of stuff. And so it was pretty much not even close to the top of my priority. That being said, we still have a very active, I would say right now, the games that have the most, clout on Knights of Last Call are amongst Pathfinder, aside from Pathfinder 2, are games like Fabula Ultima, Dragonbane, certainly a growing Daggerheart contingent. And because there's still a pretty fairly active, strong Dragonbane group, I know that it's very high up on Bob's list. My goal with Dragontide, though, was very different. Not that I don't like Dragonbane. I mean, I have all the Dragonbane stuff right here. My issue with my thing with Dragontide is I wanted to create a different type of game than just people who wanted to play Dragonbane. Sometimes part of the problem we have with Northern Reaches is not Pathfinder 2. Northern Reaches, at least it's not supposed to be. Northern Reaches is supposed to be Northern Reaches. It's a mega game with its own set of internal rules and heuristics and designs that happens to use Pathfinder 2 as its sort of core base. And we do get people from time to time who join Northern Reaches because they just want to play Pathfinder 2, like almost like as if it was like Pathfinder Society, which is fine. That's a great way to play a lot of Pathfinder 2 for sure, for a very low price. But it's not just Pathfinder 2. So with Dragontide, I didn't want it to just be a way for people to play a bunch of Dragonbane. I wanted it to be something unique and interesting and try to solve several issues that I know that my community has experienced while playing mega game like Northern Reaches, and see if I could figure out ways to solve them using this less established game. So we'll see. I don't know if that'll happen, but at the very least, Bob, I'm sure will keep up the reins. Papard says, man, I love watching your Torchbearer actual plays. It's such a different way to play TTRPGs. I learn a lot. Sunday crew equals the best crew. Yes, I'm really looking forward. We've talked about, like, should we do like a watch along or something, like when the campaign's over, to have like Saturday crew and Sunday crew like watch each other's stuff and then like interview them and comment on them and this whole thing. It'll be a fun little experiment. Yeah, I think I like adventurers as broke, scrappy underdogs too, because fundamentally, if you were just adventuring to become wealthy, the moment you got your first couple hundred gold, right, you would retire. This is part of the problem with, again, there's so many things that existed in D&D, and then they didn't change anything, but they didn't remove some of the rules of D&D, but they kept other things and they threw out other things. So like part of the thing with original D&D is you started off as a broke adventurer, and pretty soon you were getting hundreds of gold, then thousands of gold, then tens of thousands of gold. But this was Dungeons and Dragons back in the day. The assumption is that your character was going from being a scrappy adventurer to a grizzled mercenary captain who had a camp of 15 or 20 people, men at arms and hirelings and henchmen, people that, you employed your own smith. You were starting to, kind of establish yourself out in the wild. And then you start getting tens of thousands of gold and you're like, oh, and now I have a castle. I have to maintain a fiefdom. I have to build armies. I have to maintain bridges and dams and earthworks. I need to send out entire armies on campaign. So there was always this sort of exponentiation of gold that existed in D&D, but the costs exponentiated. Yes, it's true. Your 10th level fighter who had tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of gold didn't have to worry about what an inn cost, stay was. Because now they were building inns and they were buying inns or they were buying armies. So it's so that was the extension. So, but then they got rid of all that, but they kept the gold. They kept the exponential gold. They kept the exponential treasure, but they got rid of the domain play and they got rid of the hirelings and they got rid of the henchmen. And so now suddenly you're level 5 or 6 and you're like, my character has thousands of gold pieces, and what am I supposed to do? And so they fucked up in 3rd edition, in my opinion, and this is really bad in 4th edition, by going, okay, well, we'll just make the magic items cost hundreds of thousands of gold. And then it just created such a broken economy problem that just doesn't make any sense in any rational way. And then you get to 5th edition, and 5th edition had the worst problem because, and now I understand that later on they did release rules for this, but when we first started playing 5th edition back in 2014, we were playing the game and you got tons of gold because it was old school. But they were like, no, this is, 5th edition at the time was sort of supposed to be like a mea culpa to the people who played 3rd edition and even AD&D 2nd edition and 1st edition. And I always said that 5th edition to me felt like a retro clone in a way, a modernized retro clone. And they gave you all this gold, and they were like, but we got rid of the magic item markets. We're not going to give you formulas in the back of the book like 4th edition D&D or 3rd edition D&D did, where you can just go and say, calculate what the magic price of it, right? Magic items are magical, and we're not gonna fuck that up by making them, some sort of formula that you could figure out how much you could buy it for. Cool. But then they also didn't include any of the domain stuff. So now in 5th edition, you had just as much money as ever. But at least in 1st edition, AD&D, in theory, you were buying men-at-arms and armies and fortresses. And at least in 3rd edition and 4th edition, in theory, you were buying magical items that cost hundreds of thousands of gold. But then in 5th edition, there was literally nothing to buy. So gold was completely pointless. And yeah, so anyways, and I remember that was like a big problem we had because we were just like, what are we supposed to do with this? In fact, we can't even say, well, it's worth experience points back in the day, because at least back in the day, it was worth experience points. It was literally worthless. It was like Zimbabwean dollars. You just got advertised a roguelike city builder. Dan, they've been listening. And they stole our idea, Dan. They stole our idea. My joke idea. I hated Wheel of Time, and I think that the author dying was probably the best thing that happened to the series. My unpopular opinion. I'm not going to lie, Dan. I love Wheel of Time. But Jordan's last couple of books were rough. And Sanderson, I think, did save the series. So I don't think that's a totally wrong thing. But so I love Wheel of Time. I didn't want to see the author die, but I do think that Brandon Sanderson was able to end that series perhaps better than Jordan would have. Thank you, Derek. Does everyone in the Northern Reaches belong to the same faction, or how does it work? Cardboard Enjoyer. Last season, no. Last season, we had different factions. It created a bit of a drama. So this season, everybody is part of kind of the same core. You're all adventurers in Northport. You might care about different things. You might work towards different projects. You might care about different, quests or different objectives. But fundamentally, everybody's on the same team. Team Northport. Team, Northern Reaches. No, I have not. I have not played City. I have not played City in the Mist, and I have not played Legends in the Mist either. Agile Monk, Brother Derek. In an effort to support you, sir, I just did a Legend annual on Patreon just now. Holy shit! Oh, awesome! I hope things improve for you and that you will be blessed and well, my friend. Agile Monk. Holy shit! Well, thank you so much. Wow, that is very generous. For those of you who don't know, Legend is our highest tier. It's literally it's limited. We only have a couple of spots available for it. It's not cheap. It's really just supposed to. Usually, it's there for people who really want to show their support for this incredible community and show the support for me. And to do it for annual means putting down your money in advance. Agile Monk. Wow.
I am strong.
You well deserve this. We'll certainly talk later on the Discord. I look forward to talking with you, sir. That is very, very, very generous of you, and thank you so much. People like you and people like my patrons, who you are now, and people who support this channel are the reason why I didn't lose my literal shit when because after everything that happened to me, and then I got laid off from my job. I think if I didn't have this channel, I probably would have broke. Like I would have had like a psychological break, and like with reality. So it truly thank you so much, and I do thank you for your contributions and your efforts, and that is incredibly generous of you, and I really appreciate you, and I look forward to talking with you and having you be part of the community. Certainly, you've been around. All right, thank you, Agile Monk. Wow, awesome. Thank you. Wow. All right. See, craziness. There you go. 501. 501st. Yeah, the entire fiction breaking thing where characters gain 5 levels a week. I mean, this is like this whole weird thing is like, what is a level anyways? And what does it mean? And should it be something diegetic? Should it be something in the fiction? What is it really? How do we explain it? Do people really get better at fighting after they like go into like a dungeon for a couple days? Like, no. What are you going to do? Introduce training into your game? And now suddenly, and then it's like, okay, well then can I train without getting experience points? And it's like, no. And it's like, well, how does that work? Because that's not anything like what the real world is. There's a lot of copium that occurs because people are trying to explain levels. So yeah. Yeah, the Magic Item treadmill was very, very rough. Yes, 3rd edition made Magic Items very expensive and then told you never buy them. Yeah, 5e could have gotten rid of it. 5e could have gotten to the point where like a bag of gold was like a king's ransom. But it just it didn't do, because it didn't need money anymore. Right? You didn't need to buy magical items. It got away from the magic item Christmas tree. It got away from the magic item treadmill, and it had broke with the XP for gold, and it had broken with the when you get higher level, you become a lady or lord of men, and you need to be able to afford your castle and your army and your upkeeps. So it got rid of all of that, and then still kept the tens of thousands of gold. I don't know why. That was just such a big miss. I think Colville was trying to bring back some of that elements. I know Smith bought that book. I think he said he can't stand Matt Colville's writing style, but the content was pretty good. We can only hope, Platinus. Although at this point, I gave up on A Song of Ice and Fire for A Feast of Crows. So is that the 3rd one? Right? Is A Feast for Crows the 3rd one? But I never read, was it the 4th and the 5th one? I'm trying to even remember now. It's been so long, and Feast of Crows is 4. Okay, then I never read the 5th one, whatever the 5th one was. Hackmaster head training with and without XP. Yeah, there you go. The superior game, Jay. Truly the superior game. We could do a GURPS someday, Lugs. I mean, GURPS, as I said before, I have an ancient history with GURPS. I don't even know where my What a shame. I don't know where my GURPS is. GURPS was the second RPG system that I ever bought. So aside from D&D, it was the first thing I ever bought. I was like, oh, I'm going to be a real gamer. Yeah, so the rules, Dr. Stevel, were that you needed XP to level. And that once you got enough XP to level, the GM would determine if you could level up, and then you would have to train, and that also costs money. But the number of weeks or months that it took to train was dependent on how well the GM had scored you. Secretly, at the end of every session, the DM would rate your performance from a 1 to a 4, I think. And with a 1 being good and a 4 being bad, and he would sum those up, and that when you came time to train, the number of weeks or months of training that it took was the sum of all of those scores. Basically, if in the DM's opinion, you had acquitted yourself well as your chosen class during those weeks or months of play, you would have a low score and thus would need to spend less time less time in the fictional world, and therefore less money training because you had sort of, learned on the job. You had that on-hand experience, right? Real world experience. But if you did what the GM decided was a shit job, you would be penalized and punished by having to spend more time and therefore more money to level up once you even got the XP that you needed to level up. So XP XP did not make you level up. XP gave you the ability to level up. And if you've ever played Cloud's Zine, or Might and Magic, but Cloud's Zine in particular, you'll know that when you had enough experience points to level up, you went to the training master and you go, looking to train, and you had to spend money, and then you had to have enough experience points, and that would level you up. And that just really stuck with me. In any case, the GURPS edition that I believe I bought was, back in the day, was like GURPS 4. Oh, here it is. Oh, no. 3rd edition. Yeah. So this is the only version of GURPS that I am familiar with. But I bought this probably circa 96, something like that, give or take. I started playing D&D probably around like 1991, 92 in earnest. And I'd been playing for a couple of years with, basic predominantly, and a little bit of, and then started to get into AD&D. And then my cousin gave me a bunch of his old AD&D stuff, 1st and 2nd edition. And then I was like full into AD&D. And then circa the mid 90s, people were starting to talk about like Vampire, and then, that started to get more popular and stuff like that. And I went to the game store and I was like, oh, like this looks cool. And like at the time I was like, I still am, but I was a huge Star Trek fan and Star Wars fan. So I actually kind of thought this was like a sci-fi game. I was young. Yeah. So anyways, I picked this up and I was like, my mind was like completely blown because it was so different from D&D. Never really caught on with our group too much, but there's a GURPS. So I don't know what edition they're onto. Yeah. Not a lot of games that sound less fun to me than GURPS, but I'd watch a stream about it. Well said. There is a 0% chance that I would play this game now, but that doesn't mean we can't talk about it. Shout out to, what's up, Vin? Shout out to RFC Steven and their collab with on/with Deathbringer. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like they're becoming like a publishing house, trio over there. Obviously, Kelsey is the queen of RPGs. I don't know who else would, in my opinion, would come close to that title. She just, everything she touches turns to gold, and obviously Shadowdark has been a huge Kickstarter, huge Kickstarter, has been a huge success. And then her Western Reaches campaign was an even bigger success. The books are selling now that I'm sort of working at these booths and I have a little bit more personal information, I can tell you that the book flies off the shelves at all the cons, just flies off the shelves. So she's, definitely where kind of, I think, a lot of old school gaming is right now. So, and of course, she very famously has, thanked several people for their participation and help in getting her books to launch. And amongst them were, Stephen Glicker from Roll for Combat and, Dan from Professor Dungeon Master from Dungeon Craft. And I think it makes sense that they're all working together. They all seem to have they all trust each other and they work well together. So yeah, more power to them. And I think it'll be really cool to see it get done. Yes, Band of Blades on the troop. Yeah, the troop style. Some people hate it. Some people like it. I think it's cool. Yet Torchbearer uses the same thing, obviously being part of that Burning Wheel universe. And it is cool. I do like it. Some people don't like it because it's super abstract, but yeah. GURPS. What does GURPS mean? Level 2 generator answered it. Yep. Generic universal role-playing system. Yep. Yeah, CD demand. We played Forbidden Lands for a year last year, and a lot of people have really started to come around to the idea of these sort of level-less systems. Forbidden Lands is hardly the only game to do it. But when you get to spend XP on stuff, I think that is a lot of fun. It's a lot of it's very cool. You get a lot of horizontal growth, not so much vertical growth, right? Which is cool. The other thing that you can do with an XP spend system is and Forbidden Lands does this, right? Where there's sort of an increasing cost if you really want to specialize. And that means that it becomes very difficult to become really, really, really good at something. It becomes very cost prohibitive. So it's a lot easier to pick up a new thing at rank 1 than to raise your rank 4 thing to rank 5. And so it can kind of put a curb on the sort of, rocket to the moon power growth that a lot of people see in those games. Sick. I've never played Star Wars D6. It's one of those games that I've been around but never played with it. And part of it is like I've had an aversion to playing Star Wars as a TTRPG. When's your personal Shadowdark RPG coming out, Derek? It's the thing to do now. Well, no, I will not be releasing an RPG. I will say that, we do have, where is it? Somewhere in here. We do have Project Shadowdeep, which is sort of our ongoing mega dungeon series where we kind of talk about the sort of scientific elements of building a mega dungeon. And theoretically, while it could be ported to 5th edition or even maybe Pathfinder 2, but it is kind of fundamentally sort of aimed at a Shadowdark-esque old school type approach. And as far as the old school approach goes, I think Shadowdark hits a lot of the right notes. So in theory, if I were to ever create a Shadowdark RPG, it would not be a Shadowdark RPG. It would be a Shadowdark mega dungeon that we would do. But my God, I don't know how any of these people publish anything. It's so overwhelming for me. I know that it may seem to some of you like I have my shit together. I assure you, I do not. I have executive dysfunction like a motherfucker. I'm one of those people that can stay really busy and get a ton of stuff done and accomplish nothing. Do you think Shadowdark has taken over D&D Online Pathfinder? No. D&D is still number 1 and will always be number 1. Lugs. But Shadowdark, very popular. And even then, I think Pathfinder 2 is still more popular than Shadowdark. Shadowdark is definitely sort of a haven for people who are just kind of fed up and tired with the rules and the rules bloat and the obsession with certain issues and problems and balance issues and stuff like that. And there's a lot of games you could go to that can solve that issue, but Shadowdark definitely is sort of in the limelight from that perspective. Is Savage Worlds not that well liked? I don't hear much conversation about it. I found a version of it designed for Pokemon. Well, Savage Worlds is one of those games that it came out too early. The original Savage Worlds Savage Worlds over 20 years old at this time, and people are just attracted to the newer, brighter, shinier thing. And I think Savage Worlds has got some cool things about it. I think Suede, the Adventure Edition, is pretty cool. But there's some anachronistic stuff in there that doesn't, that feels a little bit out of place. And some of the stuff in the game, I think just Savage Worlds to me has enough crunch to it that it's not rules light, but it's not really rules deep either. So it's this kind of weird in the middle place. And maybe that's what some people want. But for me personally, it's never a game that I really think of when I go, oh, I want to pull out a game. Are we talking Dagger Hype, Shadow Deathbringer Dark? I like Shadow Deathbringer Dark, or 500 patrons. Well, we are talking about 500 patrons, but when you get caught up, you'll get caught up to where we're at now. What is your most up-to-date opinion on Forbidden Land and its iteration of Year Zero engine? Did you enjoy your campaign? I did enjoy the campaign. My quick takeaways would be, and as follows. Number 1, the survival skill called Bushcraft in Dragonbane is problematically overloaded because so much of the game relies on overworld exploration, and that skill just gets spammed into oblivion. Number 2, my group are not a bunch of power gaming fucks, so they did not like cheese the system. But the system, I like pushing, but pushing for willpower is not a feel-good experience in my experience, because you want to fail to get willpower, and that's a weird place to be at. And then the third thing is, Forbidden Lands is sort of sold as like a grim survival RPG. I think it is neither grim nor survival. I think some of that is an illusion propagated by the style and tone of the game. In actuality, it's fairly easy to have weeks of rations and water on your character very easily. And as a result, I think that and even when you get reduced to 0 hit points, you have to roll a D66 chart, and usually only on a roll of a 66 are you going to die. Injuries heal relatively quickly. If you do break because of hit points, it's fast to come back. So I think that the game feels deadly, but isn't. So it's kind of performative in that grim survival way. So that's sort of one of my parts of it. Don't worry, Derek. It doesn't seem like you have it together, J.K. Law. No, I don't. You say J.K. Law, but I mean, my patrons know better than most, right? That, you know, I get so many balls juggling that I can't actually work on any of the balls because I'm juggling them all, right? All my attention is kept on keeping them in the air. I don't ever have time to actually like work on them. And I don't want to drop the balls because that would be messy. And then I see something new and interesting, and I'm excited about that. And so I'm like, oh yeah, I'll add that. I'll work on that. And then I just add that to the juggling, and I quickly become overwhelmed and don't do anything. I mean, hey, I mean, it's a big world, Kyogen. There's RPGs I learn about every day. I do focus on the small details. I do like to get things. I don't think I want to get things perfect. I just want them to be good. And I see a lot of things, and a lot of people say, here's the difference. People say, I want things to be perfect. That's not true. I understand perfection cannot be achieved. There's a difference, though, between something being good and something being good enough. I do not want a minimum viable product. I do not want something that is good enough. Okay? I want something that is good. That may not be perfect, but it is also not the minimum viable product. It is not the good enough. Good enough is never good enough for me. Let's see here. Yeah. I mean, that generally speaking, level 2, that's true for me as well. Not rules light, but not really deep is kind of a good way to scare me away from a system. I kind of agree with you. Pumpkin says, lol, my friend that played in my Dragonbane games calls it Bushcraft the game. Yes. I mean, Smith's Druid made, I don't know, 80% of the die rolls in our Forbidden Lands games because he was the one that had like 3 ranks of survival. So it was crazy. He would make survival rolls to lead the way. He would make survival rolls to avoid, weather or avoid wilderness encounters. He would make survival rolls to fish or to hunt. He would make survival rolls to set camp. It's like in a given day, he might make 3 or 4 or 5 survival rolls. And in a lot of those things, especially when you're underway and you're hiking, the rest of the group can't do anything. The only thing that they can do is walk with you. That's why I said it's kind of performative, level 2 janitor. All right, Jake, we got the same problem. I'm really big on lists. If I spend as much time working on stuff that's on my list instead of making new lists, I'd have a smaller list. How would you personally describe Forbidden Lands for a new player? A rules medium sandbox overworld exploration game. New hotness seems to be the lands of Yeem. Is that the one with the kids? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. We'll see how the Ennies go next week. Yeah, see, that I think that attitude, good is for the second or third release. That's the bullshit. That's why I don't play video games. That's why I don't play video games anymore. Because they just ship it and they go, we'll just patch it. We'll just patch it and release. And I think that's terrible. I think that's shitty. What would be a TTRPG that would come closest to my plutonic ideal? Daggerheart seems to check a lot of boxes. Well, I haven't actually really played Daggerheart yet, so I hesitate to call that. But you're right. It checks a lot of boxes, which is one of the reasons why I'm very excited about it. So, There are elements of the One Ring second edition RPG that I really, really like as well. Third edition D&D. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, this is true, Sebastian. Daggerheart is definitely a rules medium game. I would not say it is a rules heavy game. I would definitely not say it is a rules light game. So it is definitely rules medium. Yeah, definitely. Savage Worlds is definitely not a rules light game. I don't think it's a particularly like super over the top crunchy game, but it's not rules light. Remember too, Savage Worlds was originally designed also to be able to handle like miniature combat, not like in your tabletop role playing game, but like to handle like it was like a minis combat system, like the way War Machine is or Kill Team or something like that, you know? Yeah, I mean, new shiny RPGs are definitely a problem. Sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to be, you know, have a lot of fun with the game, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Lawful Chaotic Neutral tipped $15. To make it good, you need money in it to work. Have a nice one, Knights.
Well, thank you, LCN. I really appreciate that. Yes, yeah, LCN, I did not mention this, but because I created these goals and then ended up not being able to stream tonight, but my tip goal is my Gen Con fund. Normally, I wouldn't really care about this, but, you know, when I'm living, not even paycheck to paycheck, because I don't get a paycheck anymore. So when you tip me, it basically goes into my bank account. So I kind of have really been like, well, all right, I'll go to Gen Con because Stephen Glicker and Roll for Combat are, you know, paying for my badge, and they're letting me. I'm getting to crash on his couch at his Airbnb. So, you know, it's pretty much as pro bono as it can be. Which again, shout out Roll for Combat. But you know, if I can set a tip goal for myself, and in between now and then, I can, you know, make a couple $100, give myself a little spending money. I don't know what I would buy. I know. Well, I believe Natural Fantasy is going to be there in physical print. I think. I don't know. I haven't caught up with Ema's Discord in a while, but I'm hoping, right, that Natural Fantasy is going to be there. I'm expecting to buy Starfinder 2. I'm expecting to buy Battle Cry. I mean, that's 3 right there. I'm really hoping I can do some like I do not, again, flaunting my position is something that's crazy. I don't like to say, you know, I don't like to say anything to anyone about anything. In fact, when I remember we were at Origins and I was buying something. I don't remember what it was. It was a bunch of Free League stuff. I think it was a bunch of Free League stuff. And like Bob and I were there. And like the guy was talking to us and he saw we had the same shirt on and he said something and he goes, "Oh my God." And then like his buddy was like, "Oh, hey, that's Derek from Knights of the Last Call." Because their CEO had been on our, we had interviewed their CEO on our channel. And the guy starts talking to me about like, "Oh, let me set you up with this and this and this." And I go, "Let me just pay for this stuff, my guy. Like, I don't want it for free. Like, let me buy it, please. Like, I don't want you to just give me books, please." Meanwhile, then Bob stayed behind and was like, "Oh, let's exchange information and let me get free PDFs or something." I was like, "Bob, whatever." So anyways, I don't like to like do any of that, but I will say this. If there is a way that I can pull any amount of clout that I have, whatever little amount that is, to somehow finagle my way into getting a copy of the limited edition Daggerheart box set, I will do that. I definitely can't afford it right now, but if there's a way for me to acquire one at Gen Con, that'll if I can like, "Oh, hey, this one fell off the back of a truck," I'll be like, okay, that'd be cool. I know like they're all sold out, but like they got some stored away somewhere, right? But I do. Tommaso, I do. Actually, Tommaso, I don't even know that I would use the GM screen, honestly. Other than that, I think the art looks awesome. And I love that artwork. Don't get me wrong. The core Daggerheart book looks fine. It looks okay. But the special edition is awesome. Like the art is amazing. And I love that purple, orange, yellow, kind of golden split cover way more than the movie poster version of the core release or the wide market release. So really it's about the art. Now that art happens to be on the GM screen. So that like the fact that I don't really even actually care what's on the GM screen. There might be a couple things that are useful, but for the most part, I've seen the GM screen. One of our patrons had it at Origins and I got to take a look at it and it's good, but not much, not what I really need, but I do want it. And I'm not going to lie. I want the gold bordered cards. I think they look amazing. They look so cool. Lugs, it's so funny that you say that. Smith and I on Friday, I went over to Smith's house and we were playing 5e D&D in Rapanathuk. He and I said the same exact thing, which is that the PF2 rules, the presentation, and the Ganjo nature fit sci-fi better than fantasy. We completely agree with you. Yeah, I'm pretty much off of GM screens. The only time that I like a GM screen, because I almost never roll behind the screen. So in some ways, a GM screen actually is kind of a pain in the ass because now I have to reach over the screen and roll it. The only time I really like using a GM screen is if I have a map and I'm trying to keep it hidden from my players. So that's about the only time I want a GM screen, basically. Maybe there's like, and even then, it's got to be the low. It's got to be low. It can't be the high. I can't do the tall screens anymore. It's got to be landscape or specialist. It can't be, it can't be the high screen like we used to have back in the 90s and the 2000s. I don't like the super high screens for sure. No, War Historian. I'm sure that the regular cards will just be normal. I don't need gold edged for everything. That's fine if just the core set's gold edged. I'm cool with that. T-Rob, you can go on the eBay right now and get it for like $800. So there's that. Look at this. Look at this pimp right here. Yeah, I would definitely open it. Toys are there to be played, for sure. But anyways, I think it would look really cool. Actually, in a change of events, I did buy a 3D printer, and I'm hoping I'm going to make I'm hoping I could start playing around with SketchUp and start making some. Again, we made these for. This is kind of my prototype, but we made this for Forbidden Lands to track your resource dice in Forbidden Lands and your willpower tracker. And I'm hoping to be able to do something of similar kind of nature for stress, hit points, armor, and hope, using like little gems and stuff. I don't know what happened to my gem pouch, but it's over here somewhere. But anyways, and I think that'd be really fun. Not just for us, for our home game, to make it really cool. And also I think this should be something that the camera can pick up easily. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see. Oh, hey, Geo Rock, you rock, buddy. That's amazing. Thank you. Huge donation from Geo Rock. Geo Rock, it's fantastic. Let me buy your Starfinder 2nd edition. I love Starfinder and your channel. Geo Rock, fucking hell yeah, man. Love it. I'm excited about Starfinder 2. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm more excited about Starfinder 2 than I am about Pathfinder 2nd edition. Not that I think there's anything wrong. I just think that the rules, the class design, from what I saw in the beta, we've been playing with some Starfinder 2nd edition in our Pathfinder 2 campaign that I'm a player in. We have a soldier, we have a mechanic, and I'm just like, these are cool classes that do fun things. And there's something about the rules of Pathfinder 2 that feel better in sci-fi to me than they do in fantasy. And also, I know this is a lot of bias, but weird races and tons of different really weird, strange races, for some odd reason, is much more appealing to me in fantasy or sci-fi than it is in fantasy. And the reason is because I grew up reading Lord of the Rings. I grew up reading A Wizard of Earthsea, right? I grew up reading Conan the Barbarian. I grew up reading these foundational pillars of fantasy. And in these worlds, there was humans, or maybe humans and elves. On the other hand, my sci-fi pillars were Star Trek and Star Wars, which are full of tons of weird alien races, especially Star Wars. So, we're all products of our biases. So for whatever reason, I think I can tolerate the weird, vomit of weird races more in Starfinder than I ever could in fantasy. I know it sounds kind of silly, but I treat fantasy as something very sacred and very solemn in some ways. And I tend to think of sci-fi as being a little bit more gonzo and over the top, which Lugs had said earlier, and I kind of completely agree with. So shout out Geo Rock. I will be sure to buy it and to shout you out, because that's awesome. Thank you, Geo Rock. Mantix Games sells their files for their models in Kings of War for people to 3D print. I have heard, though, that if you're going to 3D print minis, you should get a resin printer. I'm not ready for that yet, both financially and there's a lot of extra steps that you have to do. So I just want to get a 3D printer so that I can make terrain for our home game. And two, because I want to be able to make parts and pieces as a maker, not just for fun and games. What does Starfinder 2nd edition do differently? Honestly, Pumpkin, I feel like the class design, they're having more they don't have a stick up their ass, and it's the same. It's imagine if the same people who made the Thaumaturge and the Kineticist were the people who made Pathfinder 2 originally. I think you'd end up with that. Long story short. Also, I think some of the cool factors of the 3-action economy really work better when you talk about a range and cover type system. And there's definitely more of a predominant focus on ranged weaponry in Starfinder 2nd edition, which isn't to say that there's not serial number scraped off lightsabers, but there's definitely more of a focus on ranged attacks. I think Jacob Online said it very well, right? They can kind of do whatever they want. And I think that's really cool. And they can get away with it. It's funny that you say that because I have friends that want sci-fi to be hard science and fantasy. They're happy for anything goes. And Chris, I could totally see that point. But to that end, I have never enjoyed. Okay, that's not true. I love Battlestar Galactica. But for the most part, I have never really enjoyed the super hard sci-fi shows, right? Like, I didn't like The Expanse, stuff like that. So, but I could totally see where some people are like, I really like hard sci-fi. I like warp drives. I like jump drives. When people are like, oh, this sci-fi, this sci-fi thing is so cool because, they don't have Ansibles. They have, the ships can't even go faster than the speed of light, and they deal with the relativistic effects of time, of space travel. And, they spend half the time accelerating, and then their ship has to turn around and spend half of the time braking. And listen, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was a kid. Okay. I own a pretty expensive telescope. Okay. I'm a NASA fanatic. I know the names of, every single person in the, Mercury and the Gemini and the Apollo space missions. I still don't like that as a game though, or as a fiction. I don't need it to be fiction. It's real life, fantasy. Yeah. So I think for me, it's about the class design, Pumpkin, and I think it's a little bit about the play pattern as well. Logs. I already got a printer, but I did get a bamboo FDM. I got a P1S printer. So yeah. I don't know what. I don't think that they should. I mean, okay. Let me be very clear about this. I don't think they should sell random boosters. I think that would be. I mean, I get what you're saying here, right? They're just premium cards. They don't do anything different. It's just cosmetic. I don't hate that, Lugs. I don't hate that, but I do think that they should lean into the card component.
Smenden tip $10. Have it go towards general Gen Con upkeep. Anything in particular that you are looking forward to doing or buying?
Well, as I said, I'm hoping to buy Battle Cry. I'm hoping to buy Starfinder 2. I'm hoping to buy Natural Fantasy. I've started to get into trying to get into painting miniatures again. So I'm maybe looking to, if there's like a cool, I don't know if Army Painter has a cool something, paint set or something, maybe a Gen Con special or something that I can get my hands on. I think that'll be really cool. And again, let me be very clear here. I'm not a good miniature painter. I never was, which is why I gave up on it. I never wanted to win a Golden Demon or anything like that. But I stopped painting before, the advent of contrast paints. So I'm really excited to look. I'm very excited to slap shop. Let me put it that way. If that means something to you, then you know what it means. And I know it doesn't, it's not like, oh, it's not professional and you should be layering and you should be wet blending. And no, fuck all that. I don't want to do that. So I just want to, again, I grew up with the Games Workshop model of painting miniatures, which is you prime white. Okay. You prime white and then you put down a mid-tone base coat. Okay. And you got to worry about all the details. Then you wash and you muddy the miniature down and you get the wash into the crevices to build up the contrast. Then you come in with your highlights and you paint in your highlights. If it's chainmail or fur, you can maybe dry brush your highlights. Otherwise, you're coming in with a highlight tone and you're doing, again, you're picking out all the details again. And you're doing this over and over and over. And if you want to build up good contrast in something like a cloak or in folds, you're using layering and you're you know, and if you don't want the layers to be visible, you're wet blending. And this was like the GW model of painting for, I don't know. I started painting minis in the 90s, so it was definitely the model, the sort of the go-to in the 90s. This is a very long segue about painting minis. The problem, amongst many problems, is that you had to paint the same fucking miniature like 18 times. And this was really bad because back then, you know, believe it or not, like the paint technology has come a very long way. A lot of the paints sucked and they were very low pigmentation, which is to say they had very low saturation. So that meant that if you wanted something to be like yellow, you might have to paint the fucking thing 3 or 4 times. And Games Workshop came out with a line of paints. I don't know what time they came out with them. They were called the Foundation line of paints. And they came out with them and then they stopped selling them. And they were, a lot of people hated them because they were very, very, very drab, right? Colors, but they were like packed full of pigments. And so they covered extremely well. And it was the first time I ever really started to enjoy painting a little bit. And then they discontinued them. And then I just didn't want to keep going back to it. And so I just gave up on it. So that was like kind of where I was from painting. And then since then, they came out with these things, these contrast paints, which is this combination of like a very highly pigmented, but also very translucent paint medium, which, you know, seems like it's counter-purposed, but it works. And then somebody thought, well, hey, if we could just build up a really high contrast with a black undercoat with a very quick white overcoat, then you can tint those highlights with this speed paint or this contrast paint, and you get a really good effect. And then someone had the brilliant idea of saying, okay, what if we just spray the white highlight from above, which they call zenithal priming, because it's like zenith, zenithal, the sun above you. And that way the high points that are facing the light will be brighter than the low points that are facing away from the light. And then you'll get this really good looking paint miniature. It looks great. And 10 out of 10, no, I would be so happy to be able to do that. So, no, I do not have an airbrush lugs, although I was talking to my patrons today about it. And I think they are pushing me towards picking up an Iwata Eclipse. So I'm hoping to get one of those as well. Tabletop Nerd Josh, thank you for the $10 donation. So happy I'm a part of this community. We're happy to have you here too. To see this awesome achievement come to fruition. Long live the Knights of Kal Huzzah. Yes, you know, every person's a part of it, and I'm really, it's truly humbling that we have such an incredibly awesome community. You know, and I'm not foolish to assume that, you know, this all, you know, people won't leave, and people do come and go, and that's okay. But you know, for right now, life is good, and I'm here to celebrate it, and I'm happy that you're here with us. So I grew up watching Bob Ross. I've seen probably every Bob Ross painting. I used to watch it on Twitch when they would do the Bob Ross marathons. I've actually I am an owner, proud owner, of numerous Bob Ross branded oil paints and brushes. I even have a Bob Ross palette knife so that you can make mountains. What do we got here? We got some titanium white, and this is what is this? Phthalo green. It is phthalo green. Alizarin crimson. Eh? Oh, we're almost out of midnight black. I have not oil painted in a very long time, but you know, I had to do something during COVID, so I was oil painting. watching along, Bob Ross doing it. I'll be honest with you. You know, the first 2 or 3 kind of sucked, but like the 4th one was pretty good. My mom took it. She was like, "What are you gonna do with these?" I go, "I don't know." She's like, "Can I take it?" I was like, "Yeah, sure, take it." She took it, put it in her house. I mean, obviously, I'm her kid. It's like the adult version of me. You know, her putting my finger painting from kindergarten on her wall. So I understand it's not like a super thing, but you know, we're also old. I'm old enough. My mom's if it was shit, she wasn't gonna hang it up, but she thought it was good. So, I mean, I thought it was okay. So, the fact that my mom, if I thought it was okay, it was probably more than enough for my mom to say, "Oh, that's so good, I should take it." But I really love oil painting. Oil painting's a lot of fun. I had only painted, obviously I grew up watching Bob Ross, and I never understood as a kid. I was like, "Oh, I want to paint," and my mom's like, "Okay," she got me paints, and I just never understood because I was a kid. I didn't know, like, because my mom's buying me acrylics, right? And like Bob Ross is using oil paints, so like they're different mediums and they behave very differently. And the two do not do the same thing on the canvas, but it's a lot of fun. I like painting. So yeah. New KLC lore should post a picture of the painting in the Discord. I'd have to, yeah. Next time, maybe next time I'm over at my mom's, I'll take a picture. I'll put it in the actual art. Is that what it is? Yeah, I think we have a channel called Actual Art. Are the paints still good? I have a mini paint set. I have a mini set paint that might go bad. I mean, if it's an acrylic paint, I mean, oil paints kind of last forever because the binder, right, is not water, it's oil. That's why they're called oil-based paints. And this is why, number one, to clean them and to thin them, you need paint thinner. You can't just use water because oil and water don't mix. But this is also why when you paint with oil paints, it could take weeks for the paint to dry on your canvas. And this is why you can paint an oil painting and you might work on it for days potentially because the paint is still wet. You can still use it. Acrylics acrylic is bound in water, so you can thin it with water. You can clean it with water. But that means that if the water evaporates, then the pigment sets in the acrylic and it binds and it polymerizes. So the problem with acrylic paints, which is what most mini paints are, to be clear, minis paints these days. When I was growing up, my one uncle used to like paint models, like cars and World War II airplanes, and he used to use oil-based paints. I remember because they smelled terribly. Testers, you might know the brand. Anyways, those were oil-based or enamel-based. But acrylic paints are fine as long as they're like still sealed and there's still water in them. Obviously, nothing stays perfectly sealed forever. But if they're getting really old, and they're not completely dried out, maybe you should open them, put a couple dropperfuls of water in there, shake them up really well. That can really buy you a lot of life. Just realize that if they're open and there's some place with a lot of large temperature swings, you might, especially if it gets hot, they might eventually, they will die, especially if they've been open. If they're sealed, hey. Derek, why do you know so much about painting? Again, when I was a kid, I really wanted to be good at this miniature painting. I just, sucked. And I never wanted to get better because I sucked so bad and it just took so long. And I just wanted to play. I didn't care. I just wanted to get the minis to look tabletop ready. And then in the last couple of years or whatever, this slapshot methodology came out. And I'm like, fuck yeah, this is great. Oh, RFC got their Shadowdark book funded in 10 minutes. Good for them. They, what is it? Let's take a look here. Where are they at? Hey, what's up, Ticking Time Bomb? That's a pretty good name. It is the power of Shadowdark, Jorlson. I mean, to be fair, yeah, 138,000. Wow. Oh, sick. Very cool. We have we do love our Pendragon here at Night's Last Call. We have several very active Pendragon folks. Yeah. That is the power of. I mean, Jorelson, you said well. That is the power of Shadowdark for sure. Yeah. Wow. Good for them. Of course, it helps that the three secret tome core set is $150. With that kind of high level, I mean, normally most of the Roll for Combat books are like $60, $70. So this is like double what they normally get. But still, it's huge. I mean, he's at 138,000 right now. I mean, if I could do a Kickstarter, and release a dungeon, and if I could do that much money, oh my God. I'd be set for 2 years. Chris, that's a great question. We go till the end of right before like the holidays. So we officially end because games drop off a cliff after Thanksgiving, right? Because we're in the holiday season and people are traveling and doing families and all sort of stuff. In the past, we used to play through December. Now we try to start wrapping things up in November. We will continue this. I paid for the server there. It's good for another year. I paid $2,000 for it. Somebody should use it. So if there's some really active games, we'll let them continue to be played. There might be some people who really want to finish up a quest line or something like that. But that being said, Chris, everybody's the same level. So if you joined today, you would make the same level character as everybody else. Everyone levels automatically every 3 weeks. So everyone's always the same level. And one of the reasons we do that is so that if people fall behind, they don't actually fall behind. Or if people want to join mid-season, they're good to go. Now, obviously, you might not know all of the craziness that's going on because by the time we get halfway through a season, there's a lot of moving parts to the season because there's different plot lines and quest lines, but that can be really fun and exciting, and you can come in and make a big difference because you don't have to worry about being under-leveled or anything like that. So they have a pretty cool system set in there. So yes, I would say it's still totally a great time to join. But also, I get that some people want to start when the next season starts, but the next season starts probably like March. So we usually take off, 2 or 3 months between seasons, usually. So, imagine all the paints I would buy. Yeah, I mean, I do love having a nice paint selection for sure. That's what I said. It's not just Beowulf. There's like 7 or 8 people who play Pendragon. I think Pendragon's cool, actually. I mean, I like Arthurian legend. I think I've always been very excited about the. I like the system for the passions. I think they're really cool, and the chivalric code and the system for it's very Legend of the Five Rings-ish in that way. I think the winter phase of Pendragon inspired the winter phase in a lot of my favorite games. And I like the structure and the story of it. I also like the idea of mythical Britain, which I think is really, really cool. I'm probably sure. I don't know. I cannot speak for my patrons in their games, but I will say that I'm pretty sure that if I ran a Pendragon game, it would probably be more like Mythic Bastionland than maybe the way they're running it. But that being said, unfortunately for Pendragon, sorry, Pendragon. But I don't know where it is. Oh, here it is. Unfortunately, like if I was going to play a mythical game of Knights right now, it would probably be this one. Just because this game is, I think this game is beautiful. I think this game is the right size. And I think there's just a lot of cool things about this game that I think are really cool. Oh man. It smells so good. Oh, I love this hobby so much. Beowulf is shouting out Ticking Time Bob over on the Twitch chat, has a ton of APs. Oh, sick. Well, Ticking Time Bob, I'm happy you found your West. He said Beowulf before he came over. He said he just finished up some Pendragon. So there you go. He didn't say it was on the internet. He just said he was just finishing up some Pendragon. Came over here because he saw our Daggerheart stuff though. Jorlson. Ooh. You know, Pendragon might be more of a game I would play than run. Maybe. I definitely would want to run Mythic Bastionland though, like the whole world thing with the myths. That's awesome. That's like GM crack cocaine for me. Cool. I'm excited. It's on my short list. I've said it. It went on my short list. It went on my short list. Cardboard Jar. It's a D100 system, sort of a la basic role playing, a la Call of Cthulhu, but it's a D100 system. So you have a skill, blah, 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 blah. Oh, I'm sorry. They got rid of the D100 in this new edition. It's D20. So it's Dragonbane. I said it was D100, but yes, it's D20 roll under your skill, but try to get high. What they call a blackjack system, right? You want to get as high as you can, but not so high that you bust, right? So it's a game where like rolling a 1 is good, but rolling a 20 is bad. Oh, okay. See, that's interesting, Mark Lore. Because again, I do find Mythic Bastionland more enticing because of the rules depth, which is lighter. But the generational play of Pendragon is actually probably the part that I find the most exciting. I like to play games at a macro scale. I have found more and more that I care less about the smaller individual moments of role-playing games. And I like the big picture view of the game. I care more about the story than the characters. And I care more about the sort of, what's the Wheel of Time term? The pattern of the age, right? Than these individual moments. We have never done a second look, Jorlson, but we've talked about that. I don't know what that means for this channel. But actually, Jorlson, you bring up a great question, which is, we did fill the super chat goal, which was $1. But the idea was that whenever you super chatted, because again, I wrote these goals when I thought I was going to have a normal stream and I was going to explain it. I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I'm about to go to Gen Con next week. And when I go to Gen Con, there's a lot of people at Gen Con. And so it's the closest I get to being recognized. Not because I'm famous, but because there's so many people there and they're all such nerds that the number of times I get recognized is significantly higher than anywhere else in my life. That's just been over the last couple of years. And I get stopped by people who, are patrons, which is great. I've organized with them. We meet up. It's on purpose. But I also get stopped by people who know me from the channel. But they're not a patron or anything like that. They just know me and they stop by and they want to chat and talk. And I'm more than happy to give them time. In fact, you should stop by so we could talk. But a lot of the time they ask me the same question and they say something along the lines of like, oh, it's so cool, blah, blah, blah. How do you do it? And the answer is, I don't know. I'm sitting here with this stream with 500 patrons. I couldn't tell you a damn thing. I don't know anything about running a YouTube channel. Because if I told them what I did, I would be like, that's terrible advice. I'm like, the first thing that you need to do is you need to go and spend $50,000 on audio visual gear. That's step one. Second thing you got to do is lock yourself into a 3-year lease at around $20,000 a year for a massive studio space. Make sure that you have plenty of square footage so that you can invest hundreds of hours in carpentry projects to build a fully functioning, lifelike sound stage, right? Nothing I'm saying makes sense right now. Then what you should do is spend a lot of time talking about hyper obscure RPGs that most people have never even heard of. Avoid D&D 5th edition, the most popular role-playing game in the world, like the plague. But then when you're not talking about role-playing games, really focus on super pedantic, esoteric conversations about the minutia and philosophy of role-playing games. Again, winning moves all the way. And this is terrible advice, but somehow it has worked for me. So I don't know, which is why I was like, okay, so this was a big goal for me. And I've been so, I'll be honest with you, I've been so busy / desperately trying to make sense of what my new life is the last like 3 or 4 months that I haven't really even noticed that we were so close to 500. I just happened to look the other day. That tells you how much I'm paying attention to the data. I'm not. And I was like, oh my God, we're at like 493, 494. And I was like, wow, we're getting really close. I had no idea that we were this close. And I'm like, man, I don't want to change what we're doing, but at the same time, should I be doing something else? Should we be doing something more? Should we be doing something different? I don't know.
Level 2 janitor tipped $5.
Hey.
I think it works for you because you're clearly passionate about it and invested in it.
Well, thank you, level 2 janitor. I think we are all passionate people, level 2. I mean, no one. I mean, I would say that you're a very passionate and invested individual yourself into this hobby. I would say even in some cases, I would say more so than me. You're out there actually, publishing and getting things out there. But I appreciate that. I mean, I think it's just birds of a feather, right? We're crazy people here who like these games so much, right? It's not just a pastime for us. It's a hobby, right? It's the true meaning of a lifestyle brand, right? Well, thank you, level 2. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I should be. I don't know. Now that I'm kind of slowly congealing what my new life, especially when I get back from Gen Con, I'm going to hopefully have a lot more time. We're going to get this studio together. We'll be playing games again, which is great. But again, I know I lost my job in April, but my dad had just died and all sort of stuff. So April, May, even to a certain extent, June, we're just kind of crazy. So July is the first month that I really felt like I started to get my my head above water. And now I'm like, okay, I'm making enough money with the channel that I'm not gonna be broke and destitute. I'm still, living essentially virtually paycheck to paycheck, but I don't have to worry as much about immediately finding another job. Okay, cool. So what do I do with that? What do I do now that I'm okay, so now that I can invest an extra 20 plus hours a week, 30 hours a week into this channel, what do I do with that time? What should I be doing that I wasn't doing before? Because just more of the same, I don't know if more of the same is the right solution, And to Beowulf's point about night school, game theory, first looks, actual plays. Actual plays are limited because I need people to play with. And while I may be an unemployed loser, most of my friends are not. I say most. A lot of my friends are. But as for things like night school and game theory, there's also a sort of diminishing return here, right? Which is there's only so much that I can talk about that I haven't talked about before. This is live stream 333, and these aren't short live streams, as you all know. So we've covered a lot of ground. And while I'm not saying that there's not more to talk about, there certainly is. I also feel like a lot of the questions that people ask are things that we've covered before. And maybe they just don't know that we did that, or maybe, they're just not even aware because it was, buried in some 5-hour stream somewhere. So it's a tough situation to be in, because for my most loyal, and I will say rabid fans, they watch a lot of these streams. They watch most of these streams. And so when I bring up something that we've covered 3 or 4 times, I do feel a little bad for them because I'm like, you know, they've had to hear this before. So, are my deep dive streams not a second look? Yes, but no. Level 2 genre deep dive streams for me are me talking about a game that I have a rich and copious amount of experience with, and can really speak from experience. I mean, obviously, a lot of the games I deep dive are games that I've been playing for 10 plus years. But even like if I've played 20 or 30 sessions of a game, I feel like I can speak to it with you know, a greater amount of authority. So I can do a deep dives with a lot of games, but they might not necessarily be games that are super or hyper relevant. Like I could do I could do a deep dive for Mutants and Masterminds. You know, I could do a deep dive for 4th edition D&D. I could do a deep dive about Earthdawn, but I don't necessarily know that that's as valuable for people because it's really getting into the nitty-gritty of a game system. So it's obviously very useful and good. Like first looks, people are like, "Oh, okay, cool. It's a first look." You know, a deep dive is me just getting, you know, super deep. So it's not really a second look. A second look to me is like a game that I really don't have a lot of experience with. We did a first look on it. Maybe I've talked about the game or I've looked at it a few more times, or maybe I've run 1 or 2 sessions of it. So it's more of like a second. It's almost more of like a continuation of a first look. That's what a second look like means to me. Deep dives are something different. And deep dives, there is a limited amount of things that I could talk about because, you know, there's a lot of role-playing games on this bookshelf that I, you know, for example, I think this is a cool game. Oh, this is the expansion. I pulled the expansion off, but I think this is a cool game. We did the first look on it. It was really exciting. There's a lot of cool ideas in here. I remember during the first look stream, I think I originally was kind of off diminishing pools, but now I've come to really like diminishing pools. But I can't do a deep dive on this game. I haven't played it. And you know, if I did play it, you know, maybe what I played it 2 times, 3 times. I don't consider that enough time to really talk about a game, you know? So, you know, I need, like I said, I need 15, 20 sessions with a game before I can really say with any amount of certainty that I've experienced it. Speaking of your short list of games, I may actually be more interested in Lord of the Rings 5th edition than the One Ring 2nd edition. Why? That's interesting. I don't know why Ben did. I don't know. That's one of those Ben opinions. I don't know why Ben bounced off of the One Ring 2nd edition so much, but liked Lord of the Rings 5th edition, even though Ben thinks 5th edition is very terrible. I don't particularly know. I mean, I think that what they did with Lord of the Rings 5th edition is interesting. You know, they added some corruption mechanics and they added a couple new classes to sort of represent it. But fundamentally, I don't know that I think it's really that different than playing 5th edition either. So I don't know. I mean, everyone's obviously completely, you know, free to have whatever opinion about whatever game they want. But sometimes I get Ben's commentary, and sometimes I don't. So I don't know why he bounced off of the One Ring 2nd edition. I think he didn't like the combat, which is fair, but I really liked the combat because it was super abstract and I liked that system. Do we have any 4E streams planned in the near future? Not immediately, but you know me, I love 4th edition.
Borgie tipped $13.37. Here's some dollar to support the super pedantic minutiae and esoteric tangent inceptions. Or maybe a locking cable connector.
Borgie, you know me. I love me some. Well, I don't need to worry about the locking cable connectors. I spent that $337 on cables. Let's actually take a look. Do we have a UPS tracking? Come on. Cable connect. I want to know when I'm getting my cables. When am I getting my cables? Cable connection. I had to custom order them. They had to get custom made. All right, here we go. Yep. Okay, priority mail. Okay, let me view my order. All right, here we go. All right, there we go. It's on its way. It's currently in Dallas. Estimated delivery. What? It's delivered. It's supposed to be here tomorrow? Sick. All right. There we go. Coming in hot. $333.66 of cables. I appreciate it. I'm kind of backed up on chat. Sorry about that. Smendon, that's not a bad idea, actually. That'd be a lot of work, but it's not a bad idea, Smendon. Maybe that's something that AI could help us with, like using AI to read transcripts, but from past live streams, maybe. There we go. I feel like I've learned most of what Derek has to teach at this point. There you go, Pumpkin. Pumpkin has successfully completed. He's max level. There is nothing more for him to learn. Any suggestion, thoughts about where to eventually publish my heavily modified Pokemon-inspired system based on Savage Worlds? Itch.io, man. I mean, I think that's where like the truly indie creators are publishing stuff. Publish to itch.io, pay what you want, ask for $3, ask for $5, get known, publish a couple games, really establish yourself, build up a reputation, and then once you do that, if you ever do want to publish for real, then you can do it. I mean, the other alternative is to become a talking head on YouTube and roll the dice and, yeah, I would say itch. I think that's where like the people who know go to itch. Like the people who are in like, have their finger on the pulse. They're making games on itch.io and they're playing games off of itch.io. Yeah, Roman, that's one of those things that I'd like to do just because I obviously like older games more than new games, but like that's something that I can do with my time that I definitely want to look forward to. Like I want to play Final Fantasy on Twitch, and I would never do that on YouTube because it should be something for thing. There was a talk, and I don't hate that idea, which is what we might do is we will play games like that on Twitch, and then put the VODs onto a new YouTube channel that isn't this channel. Something like that. Deep dives on Earth Dawn are always valuable. Of course, we have to go deep. We have to go deep in the tank. We gotta there's always more lore and always more mechanics to kind of, dig around and into that. I'll be honest with you. The 4th edition remastered streams lost a little bit of their wind because Daggerheart came out. And I know it seems crazy, but there's a lot of 4th edition DNA in Daggerheart in all the best ways. Yeah. And so, while I don't necessarily think that like 4th edition I think there's still a lot of awesome stuff in 4th edition. But a lot of the cool ideas and thoughts that I would have for 4th edition, I think are like better expressed in Daggerheart in that way, But yeah, Peter, exactly. A second look after I play, right? So I do a first look on a game. It makes my short list, and I know that I'm not gonna be able to like necessarily go and start a whole campaign of it and play 80 sessions of it. But if I could if I could run a game, now I can run it for, 2 or 3 sessions. I don't like one shots. I still don't think that's enough. And I would be the first person to say that even after playing a game for 3 sessions, I wouldn't give a review. It's still not a review. But could I give a second look? Yes. No, I'm not planning on stopping streaming anytime, true. Yeah, and so obviously too, when I went through all those Daggerheart classes, level 2 janitor, I guess you could argue that was kind of a second look because we were going a little bit deeper into the game, but I still hadn't played it. So I still didn't have really a lot of, other than my sort of base level RPG knowledge. Diminishing Pools, Grimwild. Grimwild's another awesome game. Grimwild's another game that kind of got stabbed in the heart and stolen by Daggerheart. Honestly, it's sort of a narrative gamist sort of, right, Blaze in the Dark version of fantasy adventure. But like, to me, Daggerheart kind of came in, killed it, and like for my interest, not necessarily mechanics, but my interest, Derek, you just need to be running games for the patrons every day and uploading them to YouTube. Content plus experience all in one. Here's the problem with that, Pumpkin. The problem is that, number one, a lot of patrons don't want to be on the channel. So that's why Saturday Crew is only Patreon, not public. Number two, and I think that this is totally valid, but to be good on YouTube, you could be a great player, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're great to watch, right? Not every person is meant to be, the ideal person who plays in a game that gets put to YouTube it knows the game, they play it well, and they're entertaining and they're charismatic, right? And so not everybody fits into that category. 3, audio visual quality is very important to me. And while I'm totally fine putting stuff up, there's a lot of people, and there's nothing against this, but there's a lot of people out there with potato cameras and potato microphones. And I think it becomes a painful experience to watch some of those experiences. I'm happy to play a game with them, but would I watch somebody do that? Probably not. Which brings me to the fourth point. And the fourth point is, this is not a job for them. So even my Saturday game, we had 3 people drop out of it. People miss because they're like, it's just my weekly game or whatever. That can make for publication. I don't want to like be yelling at my patrons because they dropped out of a game at the last minute because their baby got sick or something, and they're not going to be there for, production quality purposes. So there's a lot of layers to that, why that isn't exactly, I know you're maybe just kind of throwing that out there, but there's a lot of reasons why you can't just go and do that. Zipper says, Zipper's saying, what should I do with my thing? By the way, thanks for the 3-month. By the way, Zipperfist reminds me of 3 months. If you want to support us and you don't have any money, which I understand because I don't have any money, support us for free on Twitch. Because on Twitch, if you have Amazon Prime, so you already have to have Amazon Prime. But if you have Amazon Prime, you can give us a Twitch Prime sub once a month. You get it back, and you can give it to us. And it's only a couple bucks, but if 100 people do that, it's like $250. That pays my gas and my electric bill. That's cool. Anyways, Zipperfist says, with the amount of knowledge you've built up over the years, I firmly believe you could sell and teach a master class in TTRPG specific in game theory. Probably. I'd have to get it organized, though. I've always thought you should have a core group of patrons to call on to play some of the games you review, then do a follow-up stream on whether the game achieved what its goals were. Knights of the Round Table. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely patrons that I've played more games with. Obviously the whole point of the legend tier and the mythic, the legend tier and the exalted tier was to provide an avenue for some of my patrons to get to play games with me. But that was done as a courtesy to them for being such an incredible supporter of the channel. It was never done as a way to, use them as a cast. Oh, and by the way, actual plays do terrible. Just FYI. Yeah. I don't remember. Maybe Ben did have an issue with the combat. All I know is I thought the combat in the One Ring second edition was awesome. That being said, you may recall during the show, there was like a moment where we got completely derailed because I was reading something and somebody told me that's not what it was. And I looked it in my book and they were right. And then we looked and it was that I had a more up-to-date version of the PDF than they did. And they had actually done some pretty big errata on some mistakes in the book, which had meaningful impacts to the way that combat played out. So I'm wondering if maybe some of his issue was that. That's brutal, Dima. I played my first 4th edition campaign went for about 2 years, and we got to level 30. No, maybe it was more like 2.5 years. We leveled about once a month, and it is 29 levels. So, yeah, it took a little over 2 years, but still 2+ years. So maybe you meant 2.5 years. If you played for 2.5 years, I played for 2.5 years, and we got to level 30. That was awesome. I could make it happen. I'd have to have a skilled group of players, Derek, but I could make it happen. We literally had a score once in Scum and Villainy that I think took less than 20 minutes. You hear about Earth Dawn all the time, but you have no idea how it works or what it does. Well, we have several live streams where we cover Earth Dawn, Jorelson. So if you go to the Googles and you type in Knights of Last Call Earth Dawn, you should be able to find Rediscovering the Earth Dawn RPG, a masterpiece. Earth Dawn RPG, the deep dive continues. So at least these two will get you off to the right start. So that's it's like 6 hours of Earth Dawn coverage. So go for it. It's always interesting to look at what people say about Knights of Last Call on the internet. So there we go. I'm almost caught up. I'm sorry, I'm like really behind on chat. Twitch VOD channel is a 10 out of 10 idea. I'd have that online in the background. Yeah, so because originally I said I don't want to put any sort of twitching stuff on the main channel because I think it'll clog it up, and I want this channel to remain TTRPG focused. But a lot of people were like, I can't watch it live. I'll miss the VOD. You know, can you do the VOD? And I said, no, Twitch doesn't have VODs because I'm not a partner or something. And they're like, oh, that sucks. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to put it on my channel. But since I don't care about it anyways, and I would throw it away otherwise, putting it on a second channel, I think, is not a bad idea. You know, Knights of Last Stream or something. Derek says, no, you're right. Daggerheart is just 4E enough that the design space feels right. That's part of why I love Daggerheart. It's got a lot of love from 4th edition. It does fix a lot of 4th edition issues. I agree. It's got the right amount of gaminess from 4th edition, but it seems to sort of take a step back and embrace some of the narrative and the fiction forward while not dropping the gamist elements, which is what I like. 4E just seems like all my favorite 4E likes, but with a bunch of my least favorite D&D isms put back in. Daggerheart as PBTA 4E is a big draw for me. And that's exactly, I mean, I've described it as PBTA 4E, and that's what it is for me. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a group, Beowulf, of people on the Patreon who are, you know, if something, you know, it used to be that anything that wasn't Pathfinder 2 or D&D 5e was, you know, was hype. And now there's like people that when other people get excited about a game, they have to be not excited about that game, which is fine. You know, it's a natural reaction. When people are really excited about a game, it can turn people off. Combats are too long. The combats are fun the first 2 to 3 rounds, but then it really feels like the monsters have way too many hit points. It's a common complaint, Simon. I also don't know what monster manuals or monster manual math you are using, but I will say that Monster Manual 3, along with the Monster Vault, along with the Monster Vault, Threats to the Nentir Vale, those 3 monster manuals, Monster Manual 3, Monster Vault, and Monster Vault, Threats to the Nentir Vale, kind of solve that issue, generally, by making the monsters have less hit points and more damage. But the early, monsters were kind of anemic in that way. Yeah. That'd be kind of cool to talk about political game setting. Yeah. I don't know that I've really ever built one of those, Philip. So that would actually be kind of more of like an exploration thing for me. Hey, what's going on, Paladin Actual? You do live under a rock these days. Good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. That sick baby needs to learn how important consistent content creation is. That's right. Damn you if you learn. That's a good point. Philmont will search the transcripts for a YouTube. I mean, ChatGPT will do it too. I've used it before to try to convert 5-hour VODs into a script that I could then read. But my channel said I sounded like a robot. So my take is basically what I need to do to make short videos is just go for it and just really try to hold myself to like 10 minutes, you know. What's going on, Nutrimancer? We're just talking about a little bit of everything. Derek should do a first stream marathon where patrons can tip to skip to the next game. That's sick. The problem with that, Pumpkin, is that would cost me like hundreds of dollars. These PDF prices are crazy. When I started doing first looks 3 years ago, PDFs were $8, $12 at the most, premium, you know. Now, even like the shit PDFs are $20. Like, it's crazy. Like, I'm talking about, like, oh, this game's 10 years old. Like, I am confident that not that long ago, that game was $5 on DriveThruRPG, and now it is insane. Beowulf. Okay, think about what you just said there, and how does that make any sense? Oh, it's crazy. The cost is insane. I mean, I get that, you know, I get where they're at, you know. They got to make money too, but I mean, I want to run Tor 2nd edition just because I think Middle Earth is cool. My only problem, this is a real problem. My only problem with the One Ring 2nd edition is that the One Ring 2nd edition, like every, okay. My problem with the One Ring 2nd edition is it's the same problem with the Rings of Power. And does anyone know what that problem is? Let's see how. Can anyone figure out what the connection is between the One Ring 2nd edition and the Rings of Power TV show? Holy shit. Pumpkin. Holy shit. Fuck yeah.
Strong.
I'm actually kind of fucking shocked right now. Holy shit. That someone got that. Wow. That's amazing. That's incredible. No, the answer is they can't use a Silmarillion. The way that the Middle Earth Enterprises and the Tolkien estate licenses out Lord of the Rings is they license out, like, you know, just basically the Lord of the Rings novel. And that means that the only thing that you can use is the stuff from the Lord of the Rings novel and the stuff that's in the appendices to Return of the King. And a lot of the details of Tolkien's Legendarium are not in the appendices to the Return of the King. This is why all the RPGs are set in the Third Age of Middle-earth. And it's why the Ring of Power it had to take so many creative liberties because they were really restricted on what the kind of stories that they could tell. See, the Rings of Power were forged in the Second Age in Eregion. And there's only so much detail that they can get out of the appendices without tapping into the Silmarillion, which means they have to fill in a lot of holes. And obviously there's other issues that, of course, Rings of Power, you know, they want to make it more dramatic and more of like a soap opera to whatever, make people happy or whatever, to make it more Games of Thrones-y, right? Everyone saw Game of Thrones did really well. And they're like, how do we make everything like Game of Thrones? Fine, whatever. But Wheel of Time did it. Rings of Power did it. They all did it. But the real problem is that if I really wanted to run a One Ring game, it wouldn't be called a One Ring game because the One Ring wouldn't have been created. Because I think it would be really cool I would be much more interested in a first age game or a second age game, but before, right, the or maybe during the time in which the Rings of Power were being made, or even up to right about the time before Sauron made the One Ring. But it wasn't really about the One Ring. He wasn't the Lord of the Rings the way we know him today. I think that period in time of Tolkien's history is very cool and very interesting, because the thing that people forget is that the third age of Middle Earth is an empty land. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic in some ways. And so it was a very different vibe. It was much more mythical. It was much more magical back in the first age. So as you move, basically as you move forward in ages, each successive age of Middle Earth becomes less and less magical, less and less fantastic, because you're getting closer and closer to real world history, right? Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings, and he wrote the Middle Earth as sort of a mythology for our modern day, sort of modern day England, and which is fine, but I think the first age and the second age are fucking awesome. People are like, oh, Mirkwood, Misty Mountains. Like, give me fucking Beleriand, right? Give me Doriath. Give me, Angband. Give me Angband. Give me, Beleriand. And I think it's awesome. So, armies of Balrogs, right? Like high epic fantasy. And that's awesome to me. So, anyways, one of my problems is that it's just not, it's not what it is. It is what it is. So it's all set in the third age, which is fine. It's cool. Obviously, I like Tolkien. I like third age, but I don't know. It's not as cool to me. And I would really love to do it in that respect. But anyways, shout out to Pumpkin that he knew that they can't use the Silmarillion. No, in fact, actually, Philip, one of the things that I really liked about the film adaptations, I liked that they didn't really include Glorfindel, and they kind of gave Glorfindel's role to Arwen, and they made her more important to the character, to the show, to the movie. Because Tolkien notably was, kind of missing out on female characters, and the handful they did have, like Eowyn, were really awesome. And I do think that there could have been more, but obviously it was product of its times, all that other stuff. Plus, I just had a problem fundamentally with Glorfindel, anyways. But I hate that they made Wheel of Time into Game of Thrones. I agree. They seemed like they were starting to get their feet wet, their feet underneath them, but obviously the show got canceled. So, yeah, Rings of Power. There's a lot of things that Rings of Power does not have access to, and there's no reason why that show should even exist, given that they are trying to make. They're trying to make a show set in a time period that they don't even have rights to set it about. It's just crazy. Right. Well, that's the thing I always tell people. I go, Sauron isn't even the Dark Lord, right? He's like the Dark Lord's sidekick, right? Like the true Dark Lord is Morgoth, who was a literal dark god, right? Sauron was just like the guy that got away and was like, I'll get you next time. And, just because he was kind of a punk bitch. So, yeah, how am I supposed to respect Sauron as a villain? Wheel of Time, in my opinion, was like very Game of Thronesy, because they tried to overdo the drama, and they tried, like the whole thing with Perrin killing his wife in it's like, what? Perrin didn't kill his wife. And all these people were like grown ass adults with like real, like they were kids in the book. And just like really going over the top with so much of all that other stuff, like it was, for me, it felt like they were trying to make it this really mature storytelling that the early Game of Thrones books, in my opinion, weren't not. People forget this all the time. I think the entire Wheel of Time series, I'm going to check ChatGPT here. It's like, what is it, like 2 years or something? 2.5 years in universe. So, the show starts like Rand is like 16 or something, you know, 7, I don't know. And it finishes, he's like 19. You know, despite the fact that it took decades to write and is, you know, I don't know, like 14,000 pages or something like that. It only takes place over like 2 years. So for people saying like, oh, D&D, you level up so quick, Rand goes from I'm just a farm boy to, you know, full ass dragon reborn, reweaving Satan and rebinding the Dark One beyond the bad pattern in 2 years. That is true. You could probably do that in Lord of the Rings 5th edition. Yeah, I mean, it's usually a given that people are going to, you know, make things, you know, it's like, oh, it's, you know, we long for the past that was, right? Thank you, Foro. Appreciate it. Yeah, 500 patrons. You know, it's a huge deal for me. I can't celebrate subs because we don't really get those that often, but we do get we have managed to get a lot of patrons, and I really appreciate it, and that's really awesome. So yeah, Gen Con next week. By the way, I am leaving Tuesday morning. Gen Con doesn't start till Thursday, but I'm leaving Tuesday morning because I'm going down to help Mr. Glicker put together his you know, booth and all that other stuff. So Tuesday and Thursday next week, potentially no stream. However, I don't want to like spoil it, but we were supposed to do it Monday, but I had some other stuff going on. Next Monday, so like almost a week from now, we might do a 4 or 5 in the morning stream for me, which is to say we'll have Vin on, and it'll be in the evening, Monday evening for Australia and New Zealand, and it'll be Monday afternoon for our friends over in Europe. But we might do that Monday. So, because my plan would be to go to bed early, wake up do a really early stream, go to bed early Monday night, so I can wake up early again Tuesday morning, so I can pack my car and drive to Indianapolis, which is about 5 hours and change away. So, and I'd like to hit the door, you know, be out the door by like, you know, 6 or 7 in the morning. So we're going to do that next week. So that'll be Monday. And as for Thursday, I have no idea what we're doing. So we'll have to see. In case. Yeah. I don't know. I'm having fun. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, obviously the cool thing about the Patreon is it affords me the opportunity to do some crazy, you know, fun, weird stuff, whether that's a Daggerheart AP or a Root AP or, you know, a lot of weird, crazy stuff. And I'd like to do more stuff with that. And I'm hoping that building the studio here in my home will get a cool opportunity for my friends to get more, you know, back on the stream and, you know, get more Bob and Smith back on here. Plus, it's nice for me to have people to bounce off of and stuff like that. And, you know, right now, my buddy Tim, you know, from the channel is not working. My buddy George isn't working. So, you know, maybe I could convince them to come over and we can hang out and do some stuff in the middle of the day and all that other stuff. And I think it'd be really cool. Especially if we start doing some other stuff that isn't just RPGs too. Again, I'm always going to keep our RPG base, but if we're doing extra streams, you know, I have a lot of nerdy hobbies. You know, I'm going to get back into painting. I'd love to get back. I just spent, God knows, I spent a couple $100 at Origins. I shouldn't have, on a miniature war game, a new miniature war game that I wanted to play. I was just, you know, I got bought in by the hype and Kings of War. So yeah, it's pretty cool, but yeah. There you go. See, this is one of my friends that isn't working. By the way, potential cool thing. Yeah, you should be asleep. So one of the problems I had, what I was wondering is like for the Daggerheart actual play is like, there's certain like administrative and logistical things that I was trying to figure out and I didn't really have a good solution to them, but potentially Obvious here, who is a real life buddy of mine, might serve as our, producer and be kind of managing things behind the computer screen, which is great for me as a GM because less that I have to worry about. But also it means that there might be some cool options that we can kind of play with that we didn't have the option with before in terms of the way that the stream can be interactive and can be interacted with. So, Iluvatar, great name. Thank you for the super chat. Dagger Hype calling out Derek, who promised the next EU stream will have Daggerheart giveaway. When? Oh, great question, Iluvatar. So, I have your EU box set setting by. I guess the question, Iluvatar, is is when. I mean, I don't want to do Daggerheart stream on Monday because Vin doesn't really care about Daggerheart, so I don't want to do that to him. But I don't know. We'll either do it this week or in 2 weeks when I get back from Gen Con. But we will do an EU stream. I do want to do, like I said, at least one, possibly 2 a month, and we'll figure it out. But yes, we will do a giveaway. We did achieve that goal. Cardboard jar. I tried to find some Daggerheart actual plays, but the audio quality tends to be really bad. Can't wait for what you got cooked up. Yeah, audio quality is tough. I've spent a lot of time and money trying to perfect our audio quality and, but at the same time, like I said, try to figure out a way that we can balance playability at the table. Obviously, this is a really expensive and really good sounding microphone, but it's big and, it's in the way. And when you have 4 or 5 people around a table and you've got 4 or 5 big microphones with big boom arms, it tends to crowd up your space, which is great if you're doing a podcast and you're just sitting around and no one's doing anything. But when you're trying to write, I can't even, part of the reason I originally got a headset that I wanted to be a good, highly quality headset. So when I do my whiteboard, it's tough to even write on a character sheet or roll dice when you've got this big boom arm contraption right in front of you. Now you could do it where you mount it up here, right? And you could do that this way. I don't know if that vocally sounds very different, but I'm sure it does sound different. But then it's very awkward for me. And then especially if I'm at a table and I look to my right, I'm not looking at a person. I'm just staring into the face of a microphone. Plus it's just this completely obnoxious, big, microphone just sticking right in my face. So I like to have it undermounted. So that's one of the reasons why I invested so heavily in these. These are broadcast quality headsets that are used by sports broadcasters. So while the audio quality out of this is not as good as audio quality out of this is not your USB, Logitech device, right? This is a dynamic microphone. This uses an XLR system. It's quite expensive. So hopefully that gets us 90% of the quality, but eliminates this big, huge thing and lets us actually play the game and get to our dice and see each other and do all that other stuff, So that's another one of the reasons I've invested in that because I think it sounds really good. Again, we've done this. I think we've done these comparisons before on the channel, but let's see here. Okay, so the level might be a little off, but yeah, this is me on my headset, not this thing. So obviously I can get that out of the way, and then it's just a lot easier because now if I was working on my whiteboard or I was rolling dice or I was talking to Smith or I was talking to Bob, the other thing is mic etiquette is really good. One of the reasons that these microphones are really good is because they have a very, very small sphere that you can talk into. Everything else gets rejected. And that means you have to basically be talking into the microphone. If you go off the microphone a little bit, the sound quality dies. Here, I'll check. So like, for example, when I'm talking into the microphone, it sounds really, really good. But as soon as you go off the microphone a little bit, even if you're just off of it by 6 inches or a foot, you immediately lose a lot. And if it's somewhat over the side, forget about it, right? So as soon as you're on the microphone, it sounds great. But as soon as you go off the microphone, you lose it. And so we call that mic etiquette and knowing how to use your microphone. Well, when you're playing an RPG and you're excited and your GM's yelling at you and you're in the middle of a combat and you're reaching over to move a miniature or to grab your dice or to excited, one of the last things you're thinking about is staying on microphone. And then even when you do have to stay on microphone, it means you have to bring the microphone with you. So now you're bringing it into the shot with you. It's just a real pain in the butt. And we had a lot of problems with it in our APs, our actual plays. So one of the advantages of this is that the sound quality is different, and it's not necessarily quote unquote as good, but it's pretty good. And we get none of the problems of someone went off mic. You can't go off mic here. If I turn my head to the left to talk to the person who's sitting next to me, I don't immediately drop off my microphone by 30 decibels if I turn to the right. So that's a huge deal. That's a really big deal. Also, the headphones, turns out they're really nice for kind of locking people in. It's a little bit easier to hear everybody. Yeah, there's a lot of advantage, I think, to this system and setup. But Nilbog, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, I've told when people do ask me for real, actual practical advice when it comes to their channels, I always do tell them the same thing, which is this: you can get away with bad video quality. In fact, a lot of people who watch this channel don't even watch this channel, right? They just listen to it. But I tell people will excuse, they will excuse bad video, but they will not excuse bad audio. Bad audio is actually fatiguing to listen to. And people can get away with a lot in terms of the video, but in terms of audio quality, you've got to have good audio quality. And if you don't have good audio quality, people will turn you off very, very quickly. I would watch you in the well, see, that is very nice of you, Beowulf, but understand that you're already bought into the whole community experience. So, but yeah, I mean, I think that'd be a lot of fun. I'd love to have Bob over and just him and I shooting the shit while we just paint miniatures. And if people want to hang out with us while we do that, Now, great question, not an error. As I've said before, part of the plan is these. Well, actually, wait, hold on one second. Okay. These headsets will route into this. This is our Focusrite 8 Pre plus Scarlet. Claret. Sorry, this is the Claret. This is actually one of the things that we managed to save from the fire. It did not get destroyed in the fire. This is our audio interface. So all the XLR plugs go in the back here. This is where all the microphones go in. This has the ability to separate the different audio signals. So what that means is I can put each person's microphone onto a separate audio channel in OBS. And what that means is that I can give everybody a stream deck that they'll have, which they can use to control certain things, such as like how much hope their character has or how much stress their character has. But it also means I can put a mute button on their stream deck. And so that means that when someone goes to cough, or if somebody just doesn't want to be on their microphone, they can just push a button on their stream deck and boom, there you go. Their mic will turn off and there'll be a nice big video or a nice big, the button will turn red so they know that they're muted. And then when they want to talk again, they can just push it and turn green. And that way they can control that from their position at the table and still have individual mic control. Tin's watering the zucchini. Now, Tin, you say you're watering your garden, but you call it a zucchini. But that suggests that you're in Europe. Oh, no, that's not zucchini. That's eggplant. Are eggplants what they call courgettes? Yeah, I think eggplants are what they call courgettes. Yeah, I guess you could just call zucchini zucchini. I guess you call it zucchini. But maybe that's just a British thing. I don't know.
I am strong.
I'm assuming that this is just... Dirt, why are you up? The hell are you doing? That can't possibly. He just said it says new. Why is Dirt up? It's 2:30 in the 3 a.m. in the morning. Well, I'm up because I don't have a job, and this is my job. That's why. Okay, zucchini is a courgette. I was right. Okay, eggplant is called an aubergine. Okay, but I was right that a zucchini is called a courgette. I'm proud of myself for knowing that. Okay. All right. Well, Dirt, welcome to the adventure. For those who don't know, Dirt, of course, was a member of our Root actual play. He played the erstwhile arsonist, tinkerer, hedgehog, who liked to blow up cities and people and civilians. This is true. Dirt doesn't have a real job either. Dirt is the purveyor of my favorite local game store. So Dirt's real job is he gets up and opens up the game store and sits around and sells Magic cards and Yu-Gi-Oh cards and board games all day. It's still very early. Are you up late? Or are you up early? No, you have to be up late. Have I ever been interested to just do some video on live play audio hints and tips? I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty niche market, Smendon. How many people are doing that? Fantastic, Delise. Nice to have you here. I'm glad to have you hanging out. You know, something just popped into my head. I don't know. Oh, you know why? Because we're talking about Dirt and we're talking about him selling Magic cards, and that made me think of it's funny when you ask Dirt whenever I walk into the store and I say, Dirt, how's it going? He goes, living the dream, man, living the dream. So somebody earlier had said like, Daggerheart should steal from, should copy from card game and lean into the card game. And then they proceeded to talk about like chase foils and rare promo arts that, are just functional vanity things. But I thought they meant like card game mechanics. And this is where I'm like, I'm actually, I know a lot of people are like, it's not a card game. And it's not, using the cards is no different than just writing a feat down on your sheet. But when it comes to Daggerheart, I'm all for it. I think cards are cool. And I think manipulating cards is cool. And I think it's fun. And, we were talking about this the other day and I was like talking about like how I would, this is very presumptuous of me because the game just came out and I haven't really played it yet. But again, not because there's anything wrong with the game. Okay. But imagine. All right. Ready? You ready for this? Okay. Imagine if we remake Daggerheart a little bit. Okay. And we have a new domain. Okay. And the domain is called, instead of the domain of bone or the domain of whatever, it's the domain of beasts, right? Or the beast domain. And to fix some of the druidic components, Jake of Online, of course it would have 12 levels. And then to fix some of the druidic components, right, we instead have this beast domain. And this way, as a druid, you might have to split your choices between different domains. But, right, this is like leaning into the card game element. What if one of the defining factors of the beast domain is that your cards are double-sided, right? Just like modal double-faced cards, or like flip cards from Ravnica, notably werewolves, which happen when you transform. So like your cards in the beast domain do one thing when you're like in your humanoid form, but then when you like transform, you like flip them over and they do something new in their new form. Now again, fundamentally, this is the same thing as having, on your character sheet, you have a feat and it does one thing when you're in one form and you're doing another feat and another thing, another form. But the physical, tangible act of transforming, and again, I'm actually the Gathering nerd, so I'm guilty of what I'm guilty of. But transforming that and flipping those over, I think would be so cool. And I would just love it. And it would, and here's the thing. One of the things I like to do is like when playing the game feels like the thing that you're doing in the game. Okay. Let me give you the best example I can give. Do I have a simple way I could represent this? Okay. No, I only have, this is the terrible thing, but I only have rolls of rolled change. It's literally the only thing I have next to me. Okay. So like in a game like Caverna, okay, which is a board game. In Caverna, you are able to take a piece, which represents one wheat. Okay, so you have a wheat token. It looks like a little white, yellow shaft of wheat. It's made of wood. And what you can do in the game is you can plant it. Okay, and when you plant it, you take your piece of wheat, you put it on the board in a farming space, and then you take 2 more wheat from the bank, and then you stack them on top of that other piece of wheat. So now the field has 3. You planted 1 piece of wheat, and then you stack 2 more pieces of wheat on it. And then each harvest phase, you get to take 1 of the wheat off. And so by the time that it's done harvesting, which does take a little while because growing takes time, you now have 3 wheat, right? And then you could take those 3 wheat and you could plant each of those 3 wheat in a different field. And then you would take 2, 2, 2. So now you have 9 wheat out on your field. And then each turn, the harvest is coming in, and 3 and 3. And it feels like you're growing things. It feels like the play experience, the actual tangible play experience, feels like the experience of doing it in the game. And for me, that is a hugely important element of games. When you can have that sort of tangible feeling of interacting with the environment. And this is a huge reason why Magic the Gathering is so successful. And like, for example, I'm just stealing from the greats here. When they created the werewolf cards in Ravnica, the idea was that you had one human form on the front, and then when something would happen in the game, you would flip it over, and you get this whole new creature. And that tangible act of flipping it over is a very tangible reminder or feeling of transforming. Anyways, so I think that kind of stuff would be really cool and really fun to do with Daggerheart. I think that there's a lot of cool, fun, exciting, I don't want to, gamist elements that I think, you could, there's plenty of feats. There's plenty of feats out there that say, when this feat does this, and then in a different situation, in a different stance, this feat does something different. It's no fun. Technically, it's no different. But I think cards gives you this extra amount of leverage. And even when you're playing online, from what I've seen, like they still feel like they're still using the card visual representation. And I think that's really, really neat. And I think that's really, really cool. I don't buy packs at all. I haven't bought packs in a long time. I only draft if I buy packs. But even back when I was playing Standard, I would just buy a complete set of 4X of each card from my game store or from an online retailer, and not have to open any packs. There might be something there with turning the card for sure. But yeah, like take advantage of the card. It's a mechanical impact, and I think that it's fun, and I think it's cool to take advantage of that. I think that's neat. I think that's cool. I think that's fun. Gotta Shrek the packs. That's right, buddy. Now see, Beowulf says kill me because Beowulf doesn't play games. Beowulf only lives inside of imaginary worlds and inside of imaginary characters. I like games. It's really convenient that role-playing games are games. And yeah. How do you deal with double-sided cards in drafting decks so they wouldn't be feasible? You pad out the extra card in a sleeve. Illuvitar, there's 2 ways. Number one, 99% of people today play with their cards in a sleeve. So you put the card in the sleeve, and then if you flip it, you just pull out the card and you flip it around and you put it back in the sleeve. So 99% of people play with the cards in the sleeve. So it doesn't matter that it's got a back and a front that have cards in it. Secondly, if that's really not an option, when they do release these cards that have double-faced cards, they usually include a checklist card, it's called, which looks like a normal Magic the Gathering card, but it's got a list of the cards and you can check mark which card it is in your deck. And that way you could technically have a normal card. And then when you cast that card, you replace it with the card that is actually double faced. So those are their solutions. Which honestly, it's such a nothing burger. Most people don't even think about it anymore. He's a method actor, more like a meth head actor. That's totally true. Yeah. Which maybe is even better. Probably. The first one assumes sleeves with graphics on the back then. No, I've never used a sleeve with a graphic on the back, but just I can't believe I don't have. See, these are just black sleeves, on the front, and then cards on the. Normal cards on the front, and then they're just, normal cards on the front, and then it's just solid black on the back. So, yeah, I mean, any good quality sleeve is not going to be transparent on the back. I mean, you definitely cannot see through that. Yeah, I mean, maybe only the super most cheapest sleeves are see-through. I mean, it's definitely not like a clear sleeve. If you mean like from a board game, yeah, no one really uses clear sleeves. Those are more for board games. Anyone that uses a Magic the Gathering sleeve is an opaque sleeve. Danielle. I GM'd my first Daggerheart one-shot recently. It went well, but managing many enemies in combat made it hard to spotlight them all without leaving them standing still. Any tips? Yeah. Well, number one is don't use that many enemies. Minions and hordes are good for a reason. Minions allow you to, quote unquote, use multiple enemies as one go with the group minion move. If you, instead of using a bunch of minions or a bunch of creatures, you could use a single horde to represent an entire gang of goblins or something like that. So you can get good usage out of minions and hordes. We have access to both of them in Daggerheart. The second is that don't forget that the fiction is always evolving. And I've covered this at length in some of my other streams. I probably should do a video so that people actually watch it about dynamic spotlight management. And part of the idea is that you should not have to. The monsters in the fiction are always doing something. And just because you don't have fear or the players didn't roll a failure doesn't mean that those monsters aren't doing something. And you should be describing what those monsters are doing, even if they're not mechanically being activated. And this is where the other element, a lot of people really focused on Daggerheart, noted about, and it's a classic PBTA mistake. And then the reason why it's similar to me is because I've seen it all the time. People will watch PBTA or they'll see play PBTA and they go, this game sucks. I can't do anything unless my players roll a 6-. And that's just like so not the truth. The truth of the matter is, even Daggerheart talks about that. Number one, you can make a GM move whenever you want. So whenever it would make sense in the fiction for you to make a move, you can make a move. But you may really want to consider making a move when the players roll with fear, the players roll a failure, when the players look to you to see what happens, when the players give you a golden opportunity, or when consequences would naturally follow. And I've talked a lot about this but in the past, but you should be describing what those monsters are doing, even if they're not, quote unquote, going. Right? This is not a game. A lot of people play TTRPGs, and then when the initiative is rolled, the game becomes Final Fantasy Tactics, right? And suddenly everybody's standing in a square, just doing this, waiting for their turn, and enemies are walking past them, and allies are walking past them to go take their turn, and they're just patiently waiting till their spot in the initiative. And that's not what Daggerheart is. Daggerheart is alive and feral. And even though it doesn't seem like it, everything is simultaneous and everything is going on at the same time. No one is sitting around waiting for their turn. So if I describe a trio of crazed goblin berserkers are charging the party's position, and assuming that those monsters aren't dealt with or engaged or sometimes dealt, whatever, I'm not going to presume that goblin is just going to stand there on his square in the battlefield marching until somebody rolls a fear roll. No, the fiction demands otherwise. And if that goblin is left to his own devices, he's going to go. And if we want a mechanic that we can call on, we would say that this is a natural result of the consequences of an action left unattended. We could say that it's a golden opportunity because there's a crazed goblin heading right towards you guys and you just didn't do anything about it. There's a million ways you could do it, but you don't even really need to do that because, again, the rules clearly state the GM can make a move whenever they want. But if you want to have some structure to it, which I don't think is a bad thing, the way to look at it is, think of it this way. The monsters are always moving. The only reason we can't just make literally infinite moves at all times is because time is linear and we're stuck proceduralizing things that are where we have to have individual turns going at a time. The answer is that the monsters should always be doing something. And if and when the players respond or not respond to those actions, you should be following up with those monsters, right? One of the ideas we learned from PBTA is to make a soft move where we signify danger or imminent harm. And then we make a follow-up hard move where we deal that harm or establish or react on that harm as established. And this is getting a little bit deep in the cut, but one of the things that you can actually get away with in Daggerheart is actually pushing the gas pedal down more, because in, say, Dungeon World or any PBTA game, I still don't know my new shelf. So, like in any PBTA game, the GM doesn't make dice rolls. So when the GM makes a hard move, which might be to deal harm as established, the player just takes damage. Okay. So if in Apocalypse World, if I made a hard move, I would just say, okay, let's just say it's Apocalypse World, and I say, the crazed wasteland berserker, comes kicking into the bar, and he's got a chainsaw and he's rivering it, and he's headed straight for you. And for whatever reason, maybe the player is involved in another fight, or maybe they really want to, finish their drink. The player ignores me. They have given me a golden opportunity. And so when the chainsaw wielding berserked madman from the wastes kicked in the door to the bar, that was me doing a soft move, right? I was setting up a situation full of danger. When the players don't act or don't act appropriately enough to that danger, I can make the move that follows, which is a hard move, which one of those hard moves is to deal harm as established. And in a game like Apocalypse World and in Dungeon World, I would just say, the guy comes into you and rips into you with a chainsaw, take 3 damage. Because I don't make rolls. I don't even have dice. And you might say, don't I get to make a dodge or a defense? No, I get to make as hard of a move as I want because of the fiction is established. So the same thing is true in Daggerheart, but you can even, now some people might say, oh my God, that seems so harsh. Well, yeah, maybe. But you should have done something when a guy with a chainsaw was running up on your position. But you can get away with it even more in Daggerheart, because in Daggerheart, I still have to roll a die. So the chainsaw wielding guy who kicks in the door and he's going, and then you ignore him and he comes in and attacks you, I'm not just going to deal harm as established. I'm going to, as a golden opportunity, spotlight that adversary and probably use an attack roll against you, which could miss. And so that means as a GM, some of the times when you go to deal harm as established, when you're making your quote unquote hard move, the monster won't even hit. So I think you should be fucking push the pedal to the metal and be doing these things all the time, because you can get away with it. Because when I did that shit in Dungeon World or Apocalypse World or Monster Hearts, I'm not rolling any dice. I just say, take 2 harm, take 1 harm, take 3 harm. And that was it. There's no rule. What is this? Heat advisory. Come on. Heat advisory. How hot is it supposed to be tomorrow? 104 heat index. Jesus. Ugh. Sorry. It's a nice cool 60 degrees right now. How the fuck is that happening? It's 60. I guess it's just going to be really humid. I don't know. Anyways. That was a long answer to that person's question. Jake says, last stream when I made a distinction between monsters doing stuff and spotlighting a monster was really good. Yeah. Right. The other answer is Hackmaster. I would hesitate to do that, Pumpkin. You know, I mean, obviously, yes, depending on the fiction, you could skip the attack roll, right? But I do think that there is a, there's a, characters invest in their evasion and stuff like that. I mean, if we're talking about somebody's like legitimately ready, then, they're in the middle of a battle. I think you should still be rolling, an attack roll. Like if we're talking about a situation where like the character's held down by a bunch of ghouls and the Berserker Wasteland guy with the chainsaw comes in and rips you apart, yeah, maybe we skip the attack roll and we just go straight to the damage or something. Or maybe we even skip the damage roll entirely and I just say your character's dead. There's a lot of tonal setup for that. But also, I mean, at the end of the day, if you really think that there's a lot of positioning to it, just give yourself advantage. I mean, it's 5e style advantage, right? It's D20, 2D20 taking the high roll. Well, it's not about upsetting the players. It's about the game has rules and we should embrace them. For example, Apocalypse World and Dungeon Worlds. No. If the fiction is a fiction, Simon, you're right. People might get upset, but then that's just because they're not playing in a fiction appropriate game. This is a fiction first game, and what comes first in the fiction comes first in the fiction. It's the same reason why if a character falls into a pit of lava, I'm not going to say take 3 hit points of damage. I might say you're dead, right? We're not using the damage mechanic here. You're just dead. I don't need to know how much damage a pool of lava does, right? It does infinite for all intents and purposes. And I think you should really respect the fiction because this is how you get out of those ridiculous situations. Now, granted, it depends on the tone of game that you want to state. And this is where having a GM and understanding your tone is really important. For example, classic scenario, okay? You and I, we're playing Dungeon World, okay? And the player, they're at the bar and they're having a drink and suddenly the door flies open and 3 or 4 of the king's elite guard come in with crossbows aimed at our hero. Now, in D&D, we might say, well, crossbows only do D8 damage, and even then, they'll probably mostly miss. So, yeah, whatever, fuck it, I'll fight them and kill them. And that might be fine. That's the default assumption in D&D. Now, in PBTA, this situation could go very differently because maybe your game is a very high-powered, swashbuckling, you're kind of anime over the top, and your characters could flip out and do whatever they want. And the GM might say, what are you going to do? You're like, I'm going to leap forward. I'm like, oh, defy danger as the crossbow bolt shoots you. But in another tone of game, and again, this should never be a gotcha. The player should understand this. The GM's like, okay, they have the crossbows pointed at you. What do you do? And the player's like, well, what happens? I'm like, well, if you do anything but give up and they shoot their gun, you're dead. If they shoot your crossbow bolts at this close range, you're dead. And that's a tone of the game that you can set. This is how people actually get captured in games where the fiction matters, because we don't pretend that hit points matter in these situations, because the fiction is your character just got hit with 4 crossbow bolts and you're dead. So that is what it means to be a fiction first game. It means that you have hit points, but the fiction matters more than the game mechanics. So all I'm simply saying is that our characters in Daggerheart are kind of leaning more towards kind of superhero badasses a little bit. And I would tend to be much more lenient with the fiction rather than just doing that. And if they invested in that situation, that's, for that purpose. So that's all I'm saying. Does the make as hard of a move as you wish exist in Daggerheart, or make a hard move? No, there's no there's no game I think that has just make a hard move. It's always make as hard of a move you wish. Yeah. So like anything, I mean, when a GM makes a move in Daggerheart, they can do whatever they want. I mean, if you feel like we need that much rules minutia to deal with that, I mean, yeah, that's fine. And so again, games like PBTA just skip all that nonsense and just go straight to you're dead. Assuming that's the type of game that you want to play. Now, Apocalypse World, definitely falls into this. You're not some superhero badass here. I mean, if you get hit point blank in the gut with a shotgun, you're probably toast. But yeah, you want to make harder, softer moves, depending on what you want to do. Well, I think the problem, Beowulf, not that this maybe is a problem for Pendragon, the problem is that when D&D games try to use an abstract gamist system to cover all situations. So a good example of this is like hit points are supposed to be able to handle you fighting in sword fighting, but they're also the same system that we use to determine how far of a cliff you can fall off of, right? And this is like one of the problems that D&D runs into, is that hit points are asked to do just too much, right? Now we need to know how much damage lava does. And we need to know how much damage boiling water does. And now we need to know how much damage, you know what I mean? Because now everything gets expressed in this form of hit points. Instead of just saying hit points are a gamist construct that really only matter during fights, outside of fights, the GM will just decide. That's where people obviously lose they can't handle that. And so now hit points have this unnecessary burden of trying to sort of handle all of these situations. In my Daggerheart campaign, the first and so far only death moves stem from one of the PCs dying of stress while babysitting 60 kids. So yeah, tone can vary. Absolutely, PJ. All right. Well, I think that, you know what? I can't say it any better than that. They're a good hunter. They're not a good babysitter. And there you go. That's everything you need to know. We go from berserker chainsaws, chainsaw wielding berserkers ripping up your face, to babysitting too many kids at once. Anything could kill you in these games. That's what's cool about RPGs. I don't know when we're streaming next, but look forward to it. And again, this was really just a way for me to hop on. I was busy today, but I wanted to hop on because I just wanted to talk with you guys and share my my hopeful news. This was a big milestone for me that, again, I lost track of it. We were around, we were maybe around 400, 410 around the beginning of the year or so. And so, to go up 10 or 15 patrons on average a month for the last 7 months, I kind of just lost track of that because of everything that's been happening and going on in my life. And it was kind of a legitimate surprise for me to suddenly realize, oh my God, we're so close. And then boom, today we got like boom, 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 3-4 patrons in one day. And it just pushed us to 500. And, it's been a long time since I've been really excited about something. So yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for this channel. I'm excited for you all to be a part of this journey with me. And I'm really thankful for you all to be walking the road with me. We may not agree on everything. That's okay. We may not see eye to eye on everything. That's okay. But as long as we all respect each other, we're willing to listen and to be heard, then we'll hopefully all learn from each other and celebrate our differences, which is what I'm here for. And at the same time, maybe get you guys a good chuckle or laugh or two, teach you a few things, and have good hangs. So Smendon says, always a pleasure to catch a live stream. You should be proud of the community build and hitting 500 patrons across the world. How many people could say I can do that? No, Smendon, they cannot. And certainly a couple of years ago when things looked really bad for me because I'd opened a business and then the world's largest pandemic of our lifetime struck, and suddenly my business was pretty much dead on arrival, and I had no idea what I was going to do, and I invested a ton of money. To go from that to this has been quite a journey. So thank you so much to everybody. Thank you a million times over to our patrons. Last tip in there before we get out, Delise. Thank you so very much.
Delays tip $10. Grats on 500 smile.
Thank you, Delise. I really appreciate it. It's a big accomplishment for me, especially for as small of our channel is. I mean, there are channels that are, I'm not even exaggerating, 10 times as big as us, and they don't have this many patrons. So the percentage of people who are a part of this show that want to contribute and be a part of the community is huge, and that's everything to me. So shout out to our folks who stopped in tonight. Thank you to Lawful Catic Neutral. Big shout out to Superjet Geo Rock, who's buying me a copy of Starfinder 2 at Gen Con. Thank you, buddy. Shout out to Smendon, Tabletop Nerd Josh, Level 2 Janitor, Borger, Iluvatar, Dirt for signing up for the adventure. Thanks, Dirt. And just finally here at the end, Delise for that $10 tip. You guys were awesome and great. Again, these tip goals were more for like the mainstream. I didn't think we were going to do anything tonight with these hangouts, but you guys are just always awesome. Taking care of me. I appreciate that you appreciate me. And we'll see you next time on Knights, A Last Call. See you, everybody. Peace out.